The population of the world's islands is around 730 million, around 9% of the world's total population. If your geography is pretty good, you'll know that Java is the world's most populated island. But what about the second most populated? Well, that would be Honshu of Japan with 102 million. Number 2. Across the world, there are 7 countries with the stan suffix, meaning their name ends with these 4 letters. All 7 of these countries are found in Central/South Asia. Number 3. With 97.3% of its land being covered in forest, Suriname is the world's most forested country with this regard. When it comes to the country with the most forest in total, that would be Russia, with around 8 million kilometers squared of forest. Number 4. By metro population, the world's 4 most populated cities are all capital cities in Asia, being Tokyo, Jakarta, Delhi and Seoul, with 37.2, 33.4, 29 and 25.5 million people respectively. Number 5. The average life expectancy for a human is 73.3 years. This number has increased significantly over the decades. In 1950, it was just 46 years. Number 6. Although the largest island country on Earth, Indonesia only has 17,500 islands, which of course is a lot. However, it is only 6.5% of the amount of the country who has the most, which is Sweden with 267,000. Number 7. The newest capital city on Earth belongs to Juba of South Sudan, which officially became the capital in July of 2011. The population of this capital is around 500,000. Number 8. The continent of South America covers an area of just under 18 million kilometers squared, of which Brazil makes up 48% of this entire size. The same applies for the population of the continent too, which is around 442 million, of which Brazil accounts for pretty much half. Number 9. Speaking of continents, Asia is the world's largest by both size and population. At 44 million kilometers squared and a population of some 4.7 billion, it is responsible for 30% of Earth's land and 60% of Earth's entire population. Number 10. The largest country in Africa is Algeria. It covers an area of just under 2.4 million kilometers squared, accounting for nearly 8% of Africa's total land area. The country ranks 10th overall for the world's largest countries. Number 11. The largest sea on Earth is perhaps a sea you might not have thought of, well, for me anyway. It's a sea that I rarely ever hear about. It is the Philippine Sea, which covers an area of some 5.7 million kilometers squared. That's a larger area than 2 Argentinas. Number 12. Excluding continental landmasses, Greenland is the largest island on Earth, covering an area of some 2.13 million kilometers squared. Number 13. The population of the borough of Manhattan in New York City is around 1.6 million. This is a higher population than around 44 countries around the world, including the likes of Bahrain, Estonia and Fiji. Number 14. There are 14 countries across Oceania, of which only one country has a physical land border, being Papua New Guinea with Indonesia. Number 15. At just under 224 million, Nigeria is Africa's most populated country. It accounts for around 15% of the continent's entire population. As large as Nigeria's population is, it is still 6.2 times lower than that of India's, the world's current most populated country. Number 16. Isthmuses are narrow strips of land that connect 2 large bodies of water or land masses. Panama is an example of an isthmus country, as it connects the continents of South and North America together. Number 17. The country with the most UNESCO World Heritage Sites belongs to Italy, who has 59 in total. That is 53 cultural sites and 6 natural. China comes in a close second with 57. However, its split for natural versus cultural is quite different, with 39 cultural and 14 natural. Number 18. Around the world, there are 44 landlocked countries. That's 44 countries without direct access to the world's oceans, the largest of which is Kazakhstan, who at just over 2.7 million kilometers squared is the world's 9th largest country. Number 19. In the Democracy Index, which ranks how democratic/authoritarian a country is, the countries who have democratic in their name scored just 3.89 out of 10. Whereas those who don't scored 5.6. Number 20. At just under 7.7 million kilometers squared, Australia is the largest country in Oceania. It is in fact so large that it accounts for 86% of Oceania's entire size. Next would be Papua New Guinea, followed by New Zealand. Number 21. With 17, the UK has the most overseas territories on Earth. Although the days of the British Empire are far gone, it still has the most on Earth, eclipsing France by just 1. Number 22. In 2024, the fertility rate for women around the world was 2.41. This means the average woman gives birth to 2.41 babies. This is a 0.33% decline from the previous year and a 0.41% decline from the year before that. When this number drops to less than 2.1 is when we'll see Earth's population start to decline. Number 23. Sticking with the theme of fertility rates, South Korea ranks rock bottom with an incredibly worrying 0.68, meaning its population has actually peaked and is now starting to decline. Its population today is around 51.7 million, but by the year 2070 it's predicted to drop to just 36 million. Number 24. With a score of 0.967 out of 1, Switzerland is the most developed country on Earth if going by the Human Development Index rating. Norway comes in a close second, followed by Iceland. Number 25. The most densely populated island country on Earth is Singapore, with a density of around 7,800 people per kilometer squared. The country covers an area of just 728 kilometers squared, with a population of some 5.7 million. Number 26. The Nordic countries, which include Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway and Sweden, have a combined population of just 27 million. That's about the same population as Madagascar. However, the Nordics have an economy size of around 1.8 trillion US dollars. Compared to just 16 billion in Madagascar, that's an economy size some 112 times smaller. Number 27. At just 300 kilometers squared, the Maldives is Asia's smallest country. The country is made up of just 1,200 coral islands, the largest of which is just 7.3 kilometers squared. Number 28. At 114,700 kilometers squared, Benin of Northwest Africa is the 100th largest country on Earth. It is slightly larger than Honduras, but smaller than Eritrea. Number 29. At just under 10 million kilometers squared, Canada is the largest country in North America. It accounts for 41% of the continent's entire size. The US comes in a close second at 39%. Number 30. The world's 100th most populated country at the time of making this video is Sierra Leone, with a population of around 8.5 million. This accounts for just over 0.1% of all humans on Earth. Number 31. Going by official UN names, the country with the longest name on Earth is the UK, as its full name is the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, 46 characters long. On the flip side, there are 10 countries who share the title of having the world's shortest country name, excluding acronyms of course. Some examples are Chad, Oman, Fiji and Peru. Number 33. At 371,000 kilometers squared, the Caspian Sea is technically the world's largest lake. It covers an area larger than that of the country of Germany. Excluding the Caspian, which has the word sea in it, the next largest will be Lake Superior in Canada/the US. Number 34. Now, we all know that the Amazon is the world's largest rainforest. If your geography is good, you'll know that the Congo is the second largest. But what is the third largest rainforest on Earth? Well, that would be the rainforest known as the Australasian Realm, which runs up the northeast coast of Australia and into New Guinea. Number 35. There is a volcano on Earth that spews blue lava. known as Kawah Ijen on the island of Java, Indonesia. Its lava is blue due to the extremely high quantities of sulfuric gases emerging at high pressures and temperatures. Number 36. There are 4 countries on Earth with the word Guinea in their name, being Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, and Equatorial Guinea in Africa, as well as Papua New Guinea in Oceania. Number 37. There is an index ranking known as the Fragile States Index. For this, countries are ranked on how weak their central government is in having control over its territory. For this index, Somalia ranks first and Norway ranks last. Of course, being first is a bad thing and ranking last is a very good thing. Number 38. The Dover Strait/English Channel is the world's busiest shipping lane, with some 500 or so ships passing through it daily. Its narrowest point is just 33 kilometers. Number 39. Although a relatively vague term, the region known as the Middle East consists of 16 UN countries alongside Palestine, an observer country. The total population of this region is 460 million. Number 40. From the years 2015 to 2020, the country with the highest percentage population growth rate was Bahrain, whose population increased by 4.26%. This increase was due to migrant workers seeking higher paying jobs. Oman comes in second and has a similar story, whereas third place Niger simply ranks this high due to its high birth rate. Number 41. Going by official UN names, there is no country on Earth that begins with the letter W or X. There is of course Wales, but that falls under the sovereign country of the United Kingdom. Number 42. There are 11 countries in total with land in their name. For example, we have Poland, Iceland, Finland, the Solomon Islands, and the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Number 43. At the time of making this video, the DR Congo has a population of some 106 or so million. Skip forward 50 years and this is projected to more than double to 335 million, around the same population as that of the US today. Number 44. The average country elevation is 840 meters, with the highest being Bhutan at 3,280 and the lowest being the Maldives at just 1.5 meters. Number 45. Papua New Guinea is the country with the most spoken languages on Earth, with an incredible 840. This accounts for over 11% of all spoken languages on the planet. This is honestly crazy considering the population is just over 10 million. Number 46. The smallest country in South America is Suriname, who covers an area of just 169,000 kilometers squared. This ranks this northeastern South American country as the 90th largest on Earth. Number 47. In the year 1804, the population of Earth hit 1 billion. Some 123 years later, it had doubled to 2 billion. Now, let's compare this to the jump from 7 to 8 billion, which took just 11 years, the lowest we will ever see, as to hit 9 billion is projected to take 15 years. Number 48. At 55,200 kilometers squared, Devon Island is the largest uninhabited island on the planet. Found deep into Canada's north, this island is around the same size as the country of Croatia, whose population is some 4 million. Number 49. Germany is the most populated country found solely in Europe, with a population of some 83.2 million. Turkey and Russia do have populations larger, but they also stretch into Asia, making them both transcontinental. Number 50. Africa is the continent with the most UN countries, with 54 in total. South America has the least with just 12. That is, of course, if we exclude Antarctica. Number 51. The Caucasus is a transcontinental region between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. In this region, there are just 4 countries, being Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Russia. Well, the very southern part of Russia, that is. Number 52. The United Nations Geoscheme splits the Earth up into 248 countries and territories in total. There is also 22 geographical sub-regions. Some examples of these sub-regions are Middle Africa, Central Asia, Micronesia, and Northern Europe. Number 53. In the year 1900, there were only around 60 recognized sovereign states. This was due to various factors such as colonial empires and disputed territories. At this point, the British Empire ruled around a quarter of the world's land and about a fifth of the world's population. That's honestly insane to think about today. Number 54. At the time of making this video, there are 32 members in NATO. NATO, of course, standing for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. 30 of those are in Europe and 2 in North America. Number 55. The Malay Archipelago is the world's largest archipelago. Stretching between the Pacific and Indian Oceans, it contains more than 25,000 islands in Southeast Asia, the largest of which is New Guinea, the world's second largest island. Number 56. According to the IMF, the African country with the highest GDP per capita is Mauritius, with just under $12,000, ranking them 73rd in the world. For reference, the world average is $13,300. Number 57. Although China has the world's second most billionaires at some 495 at the time of making this video, its GDP per capita is just $12,500, the 71st highest in the world, ranking it a few places under the world average. Number 58. Lake Baikal in Russia is the world's deepest lake. It has a maximum depth of 1,642 meters. For reference, the UK's tallest mountain is Ben Nevis, which stands some 300 meters shorter than the maximum depth of this lake. Number 59. China and Russia, with 14, set the record for the countries with the most land borders. They of course also border each other. At just over 22,000 kilometers, China has the longest combined border length of any country on Earth. Number 60. On the opposite end of the spectrum, Bahrain has the shortest total border length of any country on Earth, at just 0.196 kilometers with Saudi Arabia. Well, that's if we exclude island countries, who of course all have 0. Number 61. At 53, France is the country with the most maritime borders on Earth. This is due to its many overseas territories it has spread out across the planet. Next is the UK and then the US with 42 and 28 respectively. Number 62. The Americas is this region here. It covers an area of some 42.5 million kilometers squared, consisting of some 35 countries with a population of around 1 billion, which is still a smaller population than that of 2 countries, being of course China and India. Number 63. Out of the 51 countries found on the European continental landmass, 9 have populations lower than 1 million, 24 with a population between 1 and 10 million, and 18 greater than 10 million. Number 64. From January the 7th to January the 8th, 1966, La Réunion Islands saw the most rainfall ever recorded in a 24-hour period. Some 71.8 inches of rain fell during Cyclone Denise. For reference, London sees around 23 inches per year. Number 65. Yuma in Arizona in the US is classed as the sunniest city on Earth. It sees an average of just over 4,000 hours of sunshine per year. For reference, Madrid in Spain sees around 2,800 hours. Number 66. China unbelievably has 105 cities with a population over 1 million, as well as another 11 with over 10 million. These 11 cities have a combined population of some 172 million. If these cities combined together to form a country, they would rank as the 8th most populated on Earth. Number 67. Standing 116 meters tall, Hyperion is the world's tallest tree. For reference, the Great Pyramid of Giza stands at around 138 meters tall. Number 68. Sticking with the theme of pyramids, Egypt is not the country with the most, as that belongs to Sudan, who has around 240 in total, whereas Egypt has around 118. Number 69. This region here is known as Central America. Some sources may include Mexico too, however. Excluding Mexico, the population is around 52 million. If we do include Mexico, it jumps to 180 million. Number 70. The country with the most active volcanoes on the planet is Indonesia, with 55 in total. Next is Japan and then the US with 40 and 39 respectively. Number 71. The United States is the country who sees the most tornadoes on average per year, with some 1,200. That's more than Canada, Australia, and all of Europe combined. The US has so many tornadoes because warm and wet air from the south meets cold and dry air from the north across very flat land. This makes storms which can then turn into tornadoes. Number 72. The tallest mountain outside of Asia is Aconcagua, found in the Andes in Argentina. It stands just under 7,000 meters tall, making it the tallest mountain in both the western and southern hemisphere. This unbelievably makes the mountain the 189th tallest on Earth, meaning the 188 who are taller are all exclusively found in Asia. Number 73. Brazil is the most biodiverse country on the planet. The closer to 1 you score, the more diverse your country is. Brazil scored 0.78, second place Indonesia scored 0.62, followed by China with 0.59. Number 74. Excluding enclave countries, the two closest capital cities on Earth are Brazzaville of Congo and Kinshasa of the DR Congo, who at their closest point are just 1.6 kilometers away from one another. Number 75. There are 9 countries on Earth who have nuclear weapons. There are 3 countries who used to have nuclear weapons, being Kazakhstan, South Africa, and Ukraine. And then there are 6 other countries who have nuclear weapons on their territory on behalf of another country, that country being the United States. Number 76. The country with the highest coast to land area ratio is Palau at 3,310 meters per kilometers squared. This comes to no surprise as it's an island country with very irregular shaped coastline. On the opposite end of the spectrum, the DR Congo has the lowest, as its only access to the ocean is this relatively straight tiny bit of coast. Number 77. Russia and Canada both border 3 oceans, being the Pacific, the Atlantic, and the Arctic, which comes to no surprise as these 2 countries are the largest on Earth respectively. Number 78. There are just 3 enclave countries on Earth. That's a country that is completely surrounded by another country, being Vatican City in San Marino in Italy and Lesotho in South Africa. A country is not an enclave country if it is surrounded by 2 countries, like say Eswatini by Mozambique and South Africa. Number 79. There are 20 countries around the world that do not have permanent natural rivers flowing within them. Now this is so hard to believe as rivers are such a common sighting where I live. The largest of which is Saudi Arabia, the world's 12th largest country. Number 80. There are 9 countries on Earth who have Portuguese as one of their official languages, some examples of course being Portugal, Brazil, and even East Timor. Number 81. Valletta of Malta is Europe's most southern capital. It lies so far south that it's further south than some African country capitals, such as Tunis and Algiers of Tunisia and Algeria respectively. Number 82. With some 880,000, Canada has the most lakes on Earth. In fact, it has more lakes than the rest of the world combined. Second place is China, followed by the US with 201 and 102,000 respectively. Number 83. Arica in Chile is said to be the driest city on Earth, with an average yearly rainfall of just 0.03 inches. The reason why it's so dry is due to its proximity to the Atacama Desert. This desert is so dry that in some parts there is no life whatsoever. Some parts have never recorded rainfall. Number 84. At just 2 people per kilometer squared, Mongolia is the world's most sparsely populated country. This makes it 10 times more sparsely populated than New Zealand, 100 times more sparse than Uganda, and nearly 1,000 times more sparse than Bahrain. Number 85. There are said to be 8 countries around the world with uncontacted tribes. There is obviously no known figure for how many individuals there are. Some sources range from 10 to 100,000 across the planet. Number 86. Now this one is truly mind-blowing. Between the years 2011 and 2013, China used more cement than the US did in the entire 20th century. It is estimated that China used 6.5 gigatons, that's 6.5 billion tons. For reference, 1 gigaton is equivalent to around 200 million elephants. Number 87. I'm sure we are all aware that the Burj Khalifa is the world's tallest building, standing 828 meters tall, found in Dubai in the UAE. But what is the world's largest building in terms of floor space? Which country is it found in? Well, at 929,000 meters squared, Tesla's Gigafactory in Texas is the world's largest. That's nearly double the size of the Vatican City. Number 88. Although the US is the king of fast food, it doesn't rank as the most obese in the world, and in fact not even in the top 10. The country with the highest obesity rate is Tonga at 77%. Number 89. In 2009, China became the country with the most motor vehicles on Earth. Today it has some 336 million. That's enough to give every single person in the US one each, with some left over. The country with the most vehicles per 1,000 people belongs to San Marino, with 1,300. Number 90. At 8,890 kilometers long, the US and Canada share the world's longest border. This is due to its long border along the contiguous US as well as the border with Alaska. Coincidentally, this figure is also around the same height as Mount Everest. Number 91. For GDP based on PPP, which is purchasing power parity, China ranks first at 35 trillion US dollars. Purchasing power parity helps compare currencies by looking at what they can buy in different countries. This makes it easier to understand differences in living standards and costs around the world. In this regard, Tuvalu ranks the lowest. Number 92. Speaking of Tuvalu, the country makes around 7 million US dollars per year from royalties of its .tv domain. This of course is a popular choice of domain due to the abbreviation of the word television, with Twitch perhaps being the most popular. In 2019, over 8% of the total government revenue came from these royalties alone. Number 93. With 98.8% of its entire land being covered in mountains, Bhutan is the world's most mountainous country. Tajikistan comes in second with 92% and then Kyrgyzstan with 90.7%. Number 94. When you think of Nepal, you probably think of the Himalayas, huge mountain ranges, and of course Mount Everest. But do you ever picture lakes? Does Nepal even have any lakes? Well, yep, it actually has around 5,300 in total. Number 95. In 2024, Switzerland ranked as having the world's most powerful passport. Due to its neutrality and high Human Development Index, the Swiss can enter 176 countries without a visa. Now, this isn't actually the most, as that would be the UAE with 179, but other factors place the Swiss passport as number 1. Number 96. Which country do you think has the most airports on Earth? It's gotta be one of the big boys, right? Well, by a country mile, the US has the most with 15,873. Next is Brazil with just under 5,000, and then Australia with 2,180. Interestingly, the UK has over 1,000, but is significantly smaller than the other countries on this list. Number 97. At 979 meters, Angel Falls in Venezuela is the world's tallest waterfall. To visualize this, imagine the height of the Burj Khalifa, then add another 20% on top of that. Number 98. The smallest country in Africa is the Seychelles. It covers an area of just 452 kilometers squared, making it responsible for less than 0.001% of Earth's entire land. Overall, this ranks the country as the 181st largest. Number 99. There are 10 countries around the world who have some sort of weapon on their flag, with Mozambique being the only country with a modern weapon, being an AK-47. And finally, number 100, with a fact that really took me by surprise. Antarctica's average elevation is 2,300 meters. If it was a country, this would make it the 5th highest country on Earth by this measure. If you were to stretch out Norway's entire coastline, the world's 61st largest country, it wouldn't just wrap around the planet once, it could do it twice, with some extra to spare. This mind-blowing length is thanks to what is known as the coastline paradox, where all the tiny inlets and jagged edges make Norway's coastline the 2nd longest on Earth. Number 2. There are more people that speak English in the Philippines than what live in the entirety of the UK. An estimated 70 million people can speak English in the Philippines, whereas the total population of the UK is around 69 or so million. Of that 69 million, it is believed that around 64 million speak English. Number 3. So, North Korea and Norway are found rather far away from one another, right? There must be dozens of countries separating the two. Well, in one scenario, this isn't actually true. It is in fact completely possible to travel from Pyongyang to Oslo by crossing a single country, that country of course being Russia. Number 4. What do you think the closest US state is to mainland Africa? When you visualize a world map on your head, it has to be Florida, right? That logically makes the most sense. However, it turns out that Maine, tucked away in the northeast, is in fact the closest US state to mainland Africa, at just over 5,000 kilometers, whereas Florida's closest point is some 1,500 kilometers further. Number 5. When you think of England/the UK in terms of climate, you probably imagine something like this. Grey, overcast and rather miserable, which for the most part is correct. Now, if you're from a hot country, this next sentence might make you giggle. In order for a heatwave to be declared in parts of the UK, the temperature must exceed 25 degrees Celsius for 3 consecutive days. Yes, you heard that right, 25 degrees Celsius. As cold as the UK usually is, the highest temperature ever recorded in the country was a crazy 40.3 degrees Celsius. Which is higher than the highest recorded temperature in Malaysia, Sri Lanka, the Republic of Congo or Vanuatu, places you most certainly associate with being very hot. Number 6. At an estimated 3.3 million, there are more native German speakers in Brazil than in Belgium, Luxembourg and Liechtenstein combined, where German is an official language. If we include the United States and France, Brazil still has more. And whilst we're on the topic of the German language, Germany must be the country with the highest percent of its population being native German speakers, right? It has to be. Well, no, it doesn't rank first nor second. First belongs to Liechtenstein with 91.5% and then Austria at 88.6%. Germany ranks third with 84.8%. Number 7. Australia, with around 300,000, has more camels than Egypt. Now, when you think of camels, which you probably don't do on a daily basis, if you were to associate a country with the animal, many people, including myself, would instantly think of Egypt. However, Egypt is nowhere near the country with the highest camel population. Although figures are rather unreliable, numerous African countries have upwards of 1 million. That's significantly more than Egypt. Number 8. So this is Bolivia, one of 2 landlocked countries found across the entire Americas. At 1.1 million kilometers squared, it's a pretty decently sized country. However, it doesn't have access whatsoever to any seas or oceans. Yet, quite unbelievably, the country has the 19th highest amount of warships on Earth, at some 173. That's more than the likes of Spain, Japan or Brazil. Bolivia's navy operates across its many river systems, fighting against drug and people smugglers as well as providing support and aid to those in remote regions. Number 9. If you were to split Russia into 2 by its European and Asian territory, both would respectively easily still be the largest on their corresponding continent. The Asian part of Russia would still be the largest country on Earth. Now, whilst we're on the topic of Russia, its largest subdivision is Sakha, which at nearly 3.1 billion kilometers squared would be the 8th largest country on Earth if it were to become its own independent country. Number 10. Bhutan is a peaceful country nestled away within the Himalayas. It's a country that famously measures its progress by GNH, that's gross national happiness, as opposed to GDP. Around 3/4 of its population are Buddhist. They tend to live a way of life that respects mindfulness, harmony and peace. However, in 2019, in its most recent participation, the country ranked 95th out of 156 countries in the World Happiness Ranking Index. So take that index with a pinch of salt. The index focuses on more modern quality of life elements rather than actual day-to-day happiness of the inhabitants. Number 11. So, China is somewhat seen as a rather non-religious country. Around 52% of its population identify as atheist. That's not to say that many people don't follow certain religions in the country. For example, an estimated 2% of the population is said to be Christian, a rather insignificant amount, right? Well, remember, China's population is around 1.4 billion, meaning 2% equates to around 27 million people. That's more than the entire population of Australia. If China's 2% Christian population formed their own country, they'd be around the 54th most populated country on Earth. Number 12. This is Indiana, the 38th largest state in the US. It's home to around 6.9 million people and has a GDP of roughly $500 billion. That's pretty impressive for a relatively small state, right? Well, what's even crazier is that Indiana's economy is actually larger than the entire GDP of the Philippines, Vietnam, or Bangladesh. Countries with populations of 115, 100, and 170 million people respectively. Now, this isn't to downplay those three economies, they're all developing nations and growing at a solid pace. It's more about highlighting the sheer wealth of the US and how even a smallish state like Indiana packs such an economic punch. Number 13. Alright, this has to be one of the most counterintuitive facts of the video. Alaska is both the US's most eastern/western state. But how exactly? Well, it's because part of Alaska crosses a line called the 180th meridian, which splits the world into east and west. This means that a tiny part of Alaska is technically in the eastern hemisphere, making it the most eastern state, even though it's way out west on most maps. This means that Alaska stretches further into the west than Hawaii does, and one that doesn't really make sense until you double check it on a world map. Number 14. This is San Marino, one of the smallest countries on Earth in terms of population and land size. Its population is around 33,500, yet unbelievably there are estimated to be 54,000 road vehicles in the country. That's 1.6 per person, the highest on Earth. For reference, the US, which is a very car-centric country, has a rate about half of San Marino's. The reason why San Marino's vehicle per capita is so high is because it's a rather wealthy, hilly country with limited public transport, meaning cars are almost essential for its residents. So we've now reached the halfway point with number 15. Now, this is quite a commonly spoken about fun geography fact as it defies all logic. But I'm sure if you asked 100 random people on the street who France's longest border is with, pretty much no one would guess it correctly. Most people would likely guess Spain, Belgium, or maybe even Italy if their geography knowledge isn't up to scratch. However, it is in fact Brazil, as French Guiana is a department of the French found in northeast South America. Their border runs some 730 kilometers, which is over 100 kilometers longer than its border with Spain. Number 16. The closest point of Earth's land to space is the summit of a mountain that doesn't even rank in the top 100 tallest mountains on Earth. Mount Chimborazo stands at some 6,200 meters tall, about 1,000 meters shorter than the 100th tallest mountain. However, due to Mount Chimborazo's location on what is known as Earth's Bulge, the mountain protrudes out towards space further than any other point on Earth. So whoever the tallest person to summit this mountain is, could technically be classed as the closest human to space whilst touching the Earth's land. Number 17. Now this one seriously took me by surprise. We all know that Samsung is an absolute behemoth of a global brand, and that it's easily South Korea's largest company. But just how important is Samsung to the country? Well, the company is responsible for roughly 20% of the country's entire GDP. Yes, you heard that right, 20%. The company is the absolute backbone of the South Korean economy. If it were to fail, the country would see some serious consequences. The CEO of Samsung is so important to the country, he's sometimes regarded as being just as, if not more, important than the actual leader of the country. Number 18. This is Ceuta, an autonomous Spanish city that must be found in Spain, right? Or Europe for that matter. Well, no, this city is actually found on mainland Africa. It sits on the northern coast of Africa right next to Morocco, overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. The city was taken control of by the Spanish in 1580, and has remained Spanish ever since due to its importance for facilitating trade and military defense in the region. Number 19. Greenland and Iceland are sort of neighbours, sitting just 330 kilometers apart at their closest point. But which one has more forest cover? With a name like Greenland, you'd assume it'd be the obvious winner. However, it's not even close. Greenland has only around 2.2 kilometers squared of forested land. Iceland, on the other hand, boasts around 1,800 kilometers squared of forest, which makes up around 1.5% of the country. Number 20. Papua New Guinea is named after a historic region found in Africa, even though it's found some 14,000 kilometers east of the continental mainland. The name Papua is believed to derive from a Malay word meaning frizzy-haired, referring to the hair of the indigenous people. New Guinea was used because the explorer who named the island thought the people of Papua New Guinea resembled those from the Guinea region of West Africa, particularly in their appearance, thus giving us the name Papua New Guinea. Number 21. We all know that Chile is an extremely long but narrow country. At its widest point, it measures just 350 kilometers squared. This means that if Chile were to somehow float across the Atlantic, it could easily fit in the gap between Iceland and the Faroe Islands. Another gap that it could slip through quite easily is the space between mainland Africa and Madagascar. Number 22. A country's EEZ, or Exclusive Economic Zone, refers to the area around its territory that it claims for economic purposes, such as drilling or fishing. So, which country do you think has the largest EEZ claim? You might think it's a giant like Russia or the US, but it's actually a country that ranks 48th in the world for its size. Any guesses which country it is? Well, if you include all of this country's territorial claims, it has an EEZ totaling 11.7 million kilometers squared. The country in question is France. France, of course, owns numerous overseas territories around the world, many of which are islands, meaning the zones surrounding these islands belong to France. Number 23. Equatorial Guinea is a country found in Africa, Western Central-ish to be precise. Now, with a name like Equatorial, you'd assume that this country sits on the equator. However, this is simply not true. Equatorial Guinea is in fact found just a little north of the equator line and has no land sitting directly on the equator itself. A country that does get this right, however, is Ecuador, whose name translates to equator. This country actually does lie on the equator, as its territory is located directly on the imaginary line. Number 24. So Chicago is famously known as the Windy City, but why exactly? Is it because it receives a lot of wind? Well, originally no. It is absolutely true that Chicago is a rather windy place due to the prevailing winds coming from Lake Michigan, but the original reason for it being given this name is due to the nickname given to politicians who were described as being windy, meaning they were full of hot air, often overly boasting about the city's greatness. Number 25. At 1,345 metres, Ben Nevis in Scotland is the UK's tallest mountain. Well, kind of. If we include all territory claimed by the UK, then this mountain wouldn't even rank in the top 10 nor top 20. It would in fact rank as the 23rd tallest. In this regard, Mount Hope in British claimed Antarctica will be the tallest at 3,329 metres. Number 26. So Antarctica is infamously home to the world's largest desert, as its polar desert covers nearly 14 million kilometers squared of land. That's actually larger than the world's 3 largest sand deserts combined. If we were to drop this desert into Europe, it would easily engulf the entire continent, plus another 4 million kilometers squared. So that would also include the entire Mediterranean and the Black Sea. Number 27. This is another one of those that you have to double check on a world map to make sure it's correct. However, if you drive directly south from central Detroit, where do you think you'll end up? I mean, the logical answer would be Ohio, as it's the state that is found south of Detroit and some of Michigan. However, the actual answer is Canada. Travelling directly south of some parts of downtown Detroit would take you into the Canadian city of Windsor. Number 28. This is Lake Baikal, located deep in eastern Russia, just north of the country's border with Mongolia. It's the largest freshwater lake on the planet by volume, holding an incredible 20% of all unfrozen surface freshwater on Earth. To put that in perspective, it holds about as much water as North America's 5 Great Lakes combined. Those 5 lakes cover a massive area of around 250,000 kilometers squared, compared to Lake Baikal's much smaller 31,700 kilometers squared. But how is this even possible? Well, it all comes down to Lake Baikal's extreme depth. In some parts, it plunges to an astonishing 1,600 meters at its deepest point, far deeper than any of the Great Lakes. Number 29. At around 1.8 meters, the Maldives is the world's lowest lying country by average elevation. This also gives it the crown as the world's flattest country. The maximum height of the country is believed to be found here, at just 5.1 meters. Funnily enough, on a golf course of all places. For reference, that's a shorter height than some fully grown adult giraffes. And finally, number 30. The world famous Angel Falls found in Venezuela is known as the world's tallest waterfall. Its height is an almighty 979 meters. But what if I was to tell you that this waterfall isn't even close to being the tallest on Earth, kind of? That award goes to the Denmark Strait Cataract, which is an underwater waterfall plunging some 3,500 meters deep. Now, it's not a waterfall in the traditional sense, as it's water plunging within water as opposed to air. But as it's technically still water falling due to colder water sinking below warmer water, it could be classed as the tallest waterfall on Earth. And before we end, tell you what, I'll give you one last bonus fact. So this is Yemen, a country found in the Middle East with a population of around 34 million. Its GDP in 2023 was around 17 billion US dollars. Which, unbelievably, is a lower figure than the revenue Apple made from selling AirPods alone that year, which was around $1 billion more. So there are 195 countries around the world, which combined cover an area of some 148 million kilometers squared. This means that the average country is roughly 759,000 kilometers squared. That's just a tiny bit larger than Chile. However, if we go by the median, which is the country in the middle, that would be North Korea / Malawi, coming in at around 119,000 kilometers squared. Number 2. The average age of a human on Earth right now is roughly 30 years old. However, this varies significantly across the planet. For example, it's 49 in Japan, but just 15 in Niger. Number 3. Although ranking as the 177th largest country on Earth in terms of land size, Micronesia ranks as having the 22nd most coastline on Earth, with some 6,100 kilometers. That's more than the likes of Croatia, Argentina, or France, countries that are significantly larger. Number 4. Roughly a quarter of the world's entire population lives in South Asia. This subregion of Earth also includes the world's largest population of Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs. Number 5. So this is Cape Grim, found in Tasmania, Australia. And although its name suggests otherwise, one thing that isn't grim is its air quality. This region is believed to have some of the cleanest air where people actually live on Earth. This is due to its remoteness and strong westerly winds that carry clean air from the vast ocean. Number 6. Which do you think is bigger, Western Australia or the US's 2 largest states combined? That's Alaska and Texas. Well, at 2.64 million kilometers squared, Western Australia is 227,000 kilometers squared larger than the 2 states just mentioned, showing just how ridiculously big this state is. Number 7. The Nile, Amazon, Yangtze, and Mississippi river systems are respectively the 4 longest river systems on Earth, and because of this are arguably 4 of the most famous. But what is the 5th longest river on Earth? It's a river system most people probably have never heard of, the Yenisei. It's a river system that runs through Mongolia and Russia and is the largest river to empty into the Arctic Ocean. Number 8. In the 15 most populated islands on Earth, none are found in China or the US, the 2nd and 3rd most populated countries. India, which is now the world's most populated country, has just the 1. Number 9. The country with the highest exclusive economic zone to land ratio is Tuvalu. The country has just 26 kilometers squared of land, yet has the exclusive rights to around 750,000 kilometers squared, giving a ratio of nearly 29,000 to 1. This is due to the fact that the country is spread out across many islands and atolls over a vast amount of ocean area. Number 10. Although pretty much impossible to accurately approximate, it's believed that Mount Everest weighs something in the region of 161 trillion kilograms. This estimate comes from its rough 7.5 trillion cubic meters whilst taking the average density into account. Number 11. At 8.5 million kilometers squared, Brazil is the largest equatorial country on Earth. That's a country that has territory on the equator, meaning it sits in both the northern and southern hemisphere. What's kind of crazy, however, is that only around 5% of its entire land is found in the northern hemisphere, with the other 95% in the southern. Number 12. The shortest international flight on Earth between two countries is a route between Brazzaville and Kinshasa, from the Congo and DR Congo. The flight covers a mere 24 kilometers, and its scheduled duration is 50 minutes, but the actual flight time is actually around 15 minutes. Number 13. So it's pretty well known that Mount Kilimanjaro is Africa's tallest mountain. It's probably within the top 5 or 10 most famous mountains on Earth. But what is Africa's second tallest mountain, and where is it? So that accolade would go to Mount Kenya, which is of course found in Kenya. It stands some 696 meters shorter than Kilimanjaro. Number 14. The scale used to measure the strength of tornadoes is called the Fujita scale. It goes from 0 to 5, with 5 seeing wind speeds of over 200 miles per hour. They are fairly uncommon, with around 70 being recorded throughout modern history. Number 15. In 1820, the centre point of the global economy was found within Asia, Kazakhstan specifically. But as the Industrial Revolution boomed in the West, this centre point sharply moved across to Northern Europe. However, skip forward to current times and it's pretty much reversed, travelling all the way back to Asia, where it will likely remain for the foreseeable future. Number 16. The country with the most hospital beds per capita will likely take you by surprise. It's not Norway, Switzerland, or any other highly developed nation. It is in fact North Korea. The country apparently has 13.2 beds per 1,000 people. For reference, Germany has around 8 and the US about 3. Number 17. With Greenland being part of Denmark, the entire kingdom covers an area of just over 2.2 million kilometers squared, ranking it as the 12th largest country on Earth in this regard. However, if Greenland one day becomes its own independent nation, Denmark would slip all the way down to the 130th largest country. After all, mainland Denmark is just 1.98% the size of Greenland. Number 18. With the US having by far the largest economy on Earth, as well as the US dollar being used around the world, you might think that its currency is the strongest on Earth. However, this isn't the case, as that belongs to the Kuwaiti dinar, where one will get you around 3.2 US dollars. Number 19. The only sea on Earth that does not touch land is the Sargasso Sea. It's found in the Atlantic Ocean and is defined by ocean currents rather than coastlines, meaning it has no land boundaries whatsoever. Number 20. The longest one-worded country name in the world is Liechtenstein, which is 13 characters long. Turkmenistan then comes in second with 12. Number 21. Almost every country on Earth uses the metric system. This is where length is measured in meters, temperature in Celsius, and volume in liters. However, there are 3 countries on Earth that do not use this system and instead use imperial measurements. Of course, the US is one of those, and the other 2 are Liberia and Myanmar. Myanmar uses it as it was once a British colony where imperial was the default, and Liberia as it's a country formed by freed African American slaves. Number 22. Now this one is truly unbelievable. There are more Hindus living in India, that's about 1,053,000,000, than the entire population of all the Americas combined. That's a region of some 42.5 million kilometers squared, where just over a billion people live. Number 23. In 2024, China generated approximately 1,000 terawatt hours of solar power. That's around 41% of global solar energy production. To put that in perspective, this amount of energy is enough to power the entire country of India for the year. Number 24. In terms of GDP per capita, Seychelles is Africa's richest country, and by quite some distance too. Its per capita wealth is around $18,000. Second is Mauritius with around 12,000, followed by Botswana with 8,000. Number 25. In the most recent findings, the country who saw the most road traffic related deaths per capita was Zimbabwe, with a rate of 41.2 per 100,000 inhabitants. The lowest was Micronesia with just 0.2, which comes to no surprise considering the country has a very small population spread out across hundreds of islands. Number 26. The fastest wind speed ever recorded on Earth was 253 miles per hour, measured during Cyclone Olivia in 1996. This wind speed was recorded by an automatic weather station during the storm, making it the highest sustained wind speed ever observed on the planet. Number 27. The most commonly used colour on national country flags is red, appearing on around 77% of all flags. Next is white, followed by blue, with 50 and 43% respectively. Number 28. There are 3 countries on Earth that are landlocked by a single other country, being Lesotho by South Africa, San Marino by Italy, and Vatican City also by Italy, Rome specifically. Number 29. Roughly 70 million people in China speak Cantonese, its second most spoken language. If these speakers formed their own country, they'd rank as the 20th most populated country on Earth. That's a higher population than France, the UK, or Thailand. Number 30. The Stockholm archipelago found in Sweden consists of around 30,000 islands. That's more than what can be found in the entirety of Australia, Japan, and China combined. Number 31. Other than Antarctica, which does not have a permanent population, the least populated sub-region on Earth is Micronesia, with around 540,000 people. That's less than the population of Malta. Number 32. So it's fairly common knowledge that Pyongyang is North Korea's most populated city. But what is its second most populated city? Well, that would be Hamhung, a city found on its east coast. Its population is roughly 768,000, about 4 times smaller than Pyongyang. Number 33. In 2024, China recorded the most amount of deaths at some 11.6 million. That's roughly the equivalent of the entire population of Jordan, Papua New Guinea, or Belgium. Number 34. So Brazil is of course the country with the most Portuguese speakers at around 203 million. But then which country ranks second? It's gotta be Portugal, right? Well, with around 10 million, Portugal actually ranks third, as there are roughly 23 million Portuguese speakers in Angola. Number 35. The Volcanic Explosivity Index, or VEI, is a scale used to measure the power of volcanic eruptions. The highest possible rating is 8, which is believed to have occurred 3 times in history. Once in Sumatra, Indonesia, once in the United States, and once in New Zealand. Level 8 is classed as mega colossal and can impact the entire planet's climate. Number 36. So Mount Everest is of course pretty well known, but what about the tallest island mountain on Earth? Well, that goes to Puncak Jaya, located on the island of New Guinea. It stands some 4,884 meters above sea level, meaning it stands around 55% height of Mount Everest. Number 37. It's hard to believe that North Korea doesn't rank rock bottom in the Democracy Index. In fact, there are 2 countries that ranked lower than it in the most recent report, being Myanmar and Afghanistan. Number 38. Believe it or not, this is not Washington DC, it's Gurulmud, the capital of Palau, located nearly 14,000 kilometers away. Its Capitol building bears a striking resemblance to the one in the US, which is a reflection of Palau's close ties with America. After World War II, Palau became a US territory until gaining independence in 1994. Number 39. It comes to absolutely no surprise that China is home to the world's longest bridge. It spans an unbelievable 165 kilometers. That's pretty much the exact same length as London to Birmingham in England. To drive the entire length of the bridge can take around 2 hours. Number 40. At just under 115,000 kilometers squared, Benin is the 100th largest country on Earth. It's a country found in northwest Africa that has one of the most peculiar shapes on the planet. Number 41. In 2024, Bangladesh ranked as having the most polluted air out of any country on Earth. Its average score, where the higher the worse, was 140 for the year. Pakistan ranked second with 115 and then India with 111. Number 42. So at around 37 million, Tokyo is the world's most populated city. But when it comes to the most populated megalopolis, which is a region that consists of a network of urban areas, then the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau Greater Bay Area is the most populated at some 70 million. It is one of the most economically important regions on Earth. Number 43. Now, which year in recorded history do you think saw the most deaths? Well, it's a bit of a toss-up between 1918 and 2020. 1918 saw up to 60 million deaths due to World War I and the Spanish flu, and in 2020 we had the COVID pandemic. Again, seeing around 60 million total deaths around the world. Number 44. At the time of making this video, 0.0087% of the entire population of the planet are over 100 years old. That's roughly 720,000 people. That's just a little less than the entire population of the Solomon Islands. Number 45. There is a certain region in South America where the official currency is the euro. This is of course in French Guiana, which is a department of France. Being a department means it follows the same rules and laws as mainland France. Number 46. So the official language of Bosnia and Herzegovina is Bosnian. But what if I was to tell you that it has 2 more official languages, those being Serbian and Croatian? Number 47. At some 90 million, the US is the country with the most pet dogs on Earth. However, there is one country who ranks above it when it comes to dogs per 100,000 people. That is Hungary of all places. Number 48. At the time of making this video, there are 8.2 billion humans on Earth, spread out across 195 countries. This means that the average country population is 42 million. This is about the same as Afghanistan, who ranks as the 36th most populated. For the median population, which is a country somewhere in the middle, we're looking at around 9.2 million, so something similar to what we see in Austria or Belarus. Number 49. So the UK is made up out of 4 different countries, being England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. England is by far the most populated at around 57 million, but then which country comes next? Well, that would be Scotland with around 5.5 million, followed by Wales with around 3.1 and then Northern Ireland with around 1.9. Number 50. This is Gangkhar Panusum, a mountain in Bhutan that stands 7,500 meters tall. It is believed to be the world's tallest unclimbed mountain, not just because of its difficulty and danger, but also due to its spiritual significance. Out of respect for Bhutanese beliefs, climbing the mountain is prohibited. Number 51. So Macau is a special administrative region of China and is the most densely populated territory on Earth. Some 720,000 people live in just 33 kilometers squared, meaning there are 22,000 people per kilometer squared. For reference, that's about 3 times more densely populated than Hong Kong, which is already unbelievably densely populated. Number 52. Due to their overseas territories, the UK and France occupy 3 hemispheres. However, there is one country on Earth that sits in all four, Kiribati. It's a country made up out of around 32 islands spread out across the Pacific Ocean. Number 53. Now when you think of Canada in terms of weather and climate, you may instantly think of cold weather and snowstorms. However, it does get hot in Canada, and actually extremely hot. The highest temperature ever recorded in the country was an unbelievable 49.6 degrees Celsius. Number 54. So let's imagine an alternative universe where GDP is replaced with trees. In this new world, Russia is the world's richest country, followed by Canada and then Brazil. The DR Congo, which currently ranks as the 87th richest for GDP, would climb all the way up to 7th place in this alternative reality. Number 55. The largest tsunami ever recorded surprisingly claimed only 2 lives. It occurred in Alaska in 1958, triggered by an earthquake that caused a massive landslide to crash into the water. This displacement generated a mega tsunami, reaching an astonishing 524 meters high. That's taller than Taipei 101, which was the world's tallest building when it was completed in 2004. Number 56. The longest commercial passenger domestic flight ever recorded was an unbelievable 16 hours and 25 minutes long. It went from Papeete in French Polynesia to Paris in France, a distance of some 15,700 kilometers. Number 57. Now, if you're someone who regularly watches geography content on YouTube, you might be aware that Papua New Guinea is the country with the most spoken languages on the planet. But who ranks second and third? So second place goes to Indonesia with 707, third is Nigeria with 525. Number 58. So if the Antarctic desert, which is technically the largest desert on Earth, were a country, it would rank as the second largest on Earth. It would be just 3 million kilometers squared smaller than Russia. Number 59. So this is Murmansk, Russia. It has a population of around 270,000. This actually makes it the world's most populated Arctic city. That's a city that sits within the Arctic Circle. Number 60. The UV scale measures the strength of ultraviolet radiation. It's what we look at when sunbathing. The higher, the more damage that can be done to your skin. So anything above 11 is classed as extreme. This is what you'd get in the Sahara Desert in the summer at around noon, for example. But what is the highest recorded UV ever on Earth? Well, this one is truly staggering. In 2003, at the peak of a volcano in Bolivia found 5,000 meters above sea level, a UV of 43.3 was recorded. Number 61. The largest landlocked country in Europe is Belarus. It covers an area of 207,600 kilometers squared. It's landlocked by 5 other countries being Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Russia and Ukraine. Number 62. So this is the Isle of Man. It's an island found within the British Isles, but it's not part of the United Kingdom. They use their own currency called the Manx Pound, which is pegged to the British Pound at a 1-to-1 ratio. This currency can't be used outside of the island, however British pounds can be used in the Isle of Man. Number 63. The richest people on Earth by GDP per capita for purchasing power parity are the Luxembourgers, with around 155,000 US dollars. In this ranking, the US sits 9th with around 90,000. Purchasing power parity is like comparing how much stuff people can buy in different countries with the same amount of money, so it's a good way to see who has more buying power. Number 64. New York City is actually found further south than Rome, Barcelona and Istanbul. I'm not sure about you, but when I think of New York on a map, I feel like it's much further north than the cities just mentioned, however this isn't the case. Number 65. The Maluku Islands of Indonesia are a somewhat unknown region with a population of about 3.1 million. But outside Indonesia, the largest population of Malucan descent can be found in the Netherlands, where around 100,000 people live. This is of course due to Indonesia's colonial past under the Dutch. And when Indonesia gained independence, the Dutch offered soldiers who had fought for them previously to relocate to the Netherlands. Number 66. So this is the Regent International Building in China. It is believed to be the world's largest building in terms of residents. It has a maximum capacity of 30,000, which is more people than what live in Palau, Nauru, Tuvalu or Vatican City, 4 UN countries. Number 67. The time zone UTC+8 is believed to be the time zone used by the most people on Earth. Around 21% or 1.7 billion people are believed to use it. This is mainly due to the fact that the entirety of China uses this time zone, so that's around 1.4 billion people alone. Number 68. At 22,147 kilometers, China has the longest country border length on Earth. This 22,000 kilometers of border is shared with 14 other countries. Its longest of which is with Mongolia at just under 4,700 kilometers. Number 69. The world's largest waterfall by flow rate is one you've probably never heard of, Inga Falls in the DR Congo. Around 25 million litres of water cascade over the waterfall every single second. That's around 2 billion litres per day. Number 70. There are currently 7 countries on Earth that have achieved net zero for carbon emissions, meaning they absorb more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere than what they emit annually. These countries are Bhutan, Suriname, Guyana, Madagascar, Comoros, Gabon and Panama. Number 71. The Caspian Sea is the largest lake on Earth. It holds around 78,000 cubic kilometers of water. But how does that compare to the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans? Well, respectively, they hold 310 and 710 million cubic kilometers of water, so combined just over a billion. Number 72. The highest capital city on Earth by altitude is La Paz of Bolivia at 3,640 meters. On the other hand, the lowest is Baku of Azerbaijan at -28 meters. That's a difference of 3,668 meters. Number 73. In the most recent official findings, the United Arab Emirates ranked first in the world for the country with the fastest Wi-Fi speeds on Earth, with an average speed of 297 megabits per second. It also ranks first in the world for mobile data speed, seeing an incredible average of 512 megabits per second. This comes to no surprise as the country is pretty small, extremely wealthy, and very focused on tech and innovation. Number 74. Now, although Thailand is arguably the country most associated with Buddhism, it is not the country with the highest percentage of its population being Buddhists. That accolade belongs to its Southeast Asian brother Cambodia, where some 97% of its population follow Buddhism compared to Thailand's 93%. Number 75. There are 17 countries around the world that are classed as mega diverse. This is quite simply countries that house a large amount of endemic species. Some examples are Australia, Indonesia and Mexico. Number 76. In 2023, the amount of islands that Japan has increased by about 7,000. But how exactly? Well, advancements in technology allowed them to more accurately count the correct amount of islands that it has. It turns out that they were off by about 7,000 up until their most recent study. Number 77. From Africa's westernmost to easternmost point is a distance of around 7,200 kilometers. But how does that compare to Russia, the widest country in the world? Well, as wide as Russia is, it's about 800 kilometers narrower than Africa in this regard. Number 78. The largest flat-topped mountain on Earth, which as the name suggests is a mountain with a flat top, is found in the US, Colorado specifically. Its name is Grand Mesa and has an area size of around 1,300 kilometers squared. Number 79. The US's tallest mountain is Denali in Alaska. It stands at a very impressive 6,190 meters tall. But what is the tallest mountain found in the contiguous US? Well, that would be Mount Whitney in California, standing 4,421 meters tall, so still pretty impressive but nowhere near Denali's level. Number 80. The DR Congo is of course a very hot tropical country, but believe it or not, there is a certain part of the country that is classed as polar tundra. This is at the peak of its tallest mountain, Mount Stanley, which stands at about 5,100 meters tall. This area is actually permanently snow-capped and sees temperatures that can go as low as minus 15 degrees Celsius. Number 81. Botswana has one of the fastest growing economies on Earth. Roughly half of its entire economy size comes from diamond mining, to which it is the 7th largest exporter in the world. Number 82. The Gini coefficient is an index that ranks the countries of the world by wealth inequality. The higher you score, the worse it is. In this index, South Africa ranks first with a score of 63, Namibia ranks second with 59.1, and then Colombia with 54.8. Number 83. So Antarctica is known for its inhospitable conditions. For the majority of the year, it's incredibly cold and windy. But what is the highest recorded temperature ever recorded there? Well, in January 1982, it saw a very pleasant 19.8 degrees Celsius. That is almost certainly t-shirt and shorts weather. Number 84. There is a term known as the Caspian Sea Littoral States, which is basically a group of 5 countries who all have coastline along the Caspian. They are Russia, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Iran, and Azerbaijan. Number 85. More people live in the metro region of Delhi, India than what live in the entire Nordic region. A region which consists of 5 countries and covers an area of around 3.5 million kilometers squared. That is if we include Greenland, of course. Number 86. The Sakha Republic is the largest subdivision of any country on Earth. It covers an area of around 3 million kilometers squared. That's larger than Argentina, the world's 8th largest country. Number 87. Around 80 million people around the world have Irish ancestry. That's just over 11 times the actual population of Ireland today, and that's both for the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. Of that 80 million, about 32 million live in the US alone. Number 88. Mongolia is roughly 10 times larger than Bangladesh, but Bangladesh has a population some 49 times greater. And this number will only get bigger as time goes by, as Bangladesh is growing much faster than Mongolia. Number 89. Lake Victoria in Africa is a very important body of water. Not only is it the largest lake on the continent, but it's also the largest tropical lake on Earth and the 2nd largest freshwater lake in the world. Number 90. So most countries have an official language. Some actually have none, some have 2, or maybe even 3. Bolivia, however, has 37. Yes, you heard that right, 37. Spanish is of course the most widely spoken, with around 70% of the population speaking it. Number 91. Antigua's 2nd highest income stream is its citizenship by investment program. This, as the name suggests, is a way to get citizenship by investing in businesses or real estate in the country. Another way to get citizenship in the country is by donating $100,000 into its National Development Fund. Number 92. The Indian state of Uttar Pradesh has a population of around 257 million. That's a higher population than Russia, South Korea, and Argentina combined. Number 93. There is a domestic flight that spans 6,700 kilometers without crossing a single other country. Unsurprisingly, this flight is in Russia, travelling from Petropavlovsk in the far east all the way to Moscow in the west. Number 94. At nearly 5.7 million kilometers squared, the Philippine Sea is the largest sea on Earth. That's a larger area than Algeria and Kazakhstan combined. Number 95. In 2024, the fertility rate across the planet was 2.3. That's just above the 2.1 required to hit the replacement level. Niger had the highest at a crazy 6.6, and the lowest was in Hong Kong with 0.8. Number 96. The 2 most forested countries on Earth by percentage of land cover are both found in South America. If we include the French Department of French Guiana, then they take up the top 3 spots, being French Guiana, Suriname, and Guyana. Number 97. The Baltic countries comprise of Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. They combine for a total size of around 175,000 kilometers squared. That's just a little smaller than the US state of Missouri and a little bit larger than Florida. Number 98. The flag of the EU has 12 stars, but why? It's nothing to do with the first countries that joined, as there were 6. Well, the number 12 was chosen as more of a symbol, as the number is associated with perfection and unity. For example, there are 12 months of the year, 12 hours on a clock, and 12 signs of the zodiac. Number 99. If you were to randomly select a bit of land on Earth, there's a 30% chance it'd be in Asia. And if you were to randomly select a human, there's a 60% chance they'd be Asian. And finally, number 100. So there are 1,223 UNESCO World Heritage Sites across 168 countries around the world. What's kind of interesting though is how the geographical zones are split up. It's not in the traditional continental sense, but instead we have Africa, the Arab states, Asia and the Pacific, Europe and North America, and Latin America and the Caribbean. The region with the most is Europe and North America with 573. So by metro area, the world's most populated capital city is Tokyo of Japan, with a population of around 37 million. That's about the same population as Poland or Morocco. Number 2. The newest capital city at the time of making this video belongs to Juba of South Sudan, who officially became the country's capital on the day that it was founded, the 9th of July 2011. The country officially declared its independence from Sudan, leading to the city becoming the newest capital on Earth. Number 3. La Paz, one of 2 of Bolivia's capital cities, is the highest capital city on Earth in terms of elevation from sea level. The city is found in the west of the country and sits at an elevation of around 3,650 meters. The city is high up enough to cause altitude sickness in some people, as altitude sickness can start at altitudes of around 2,400 meters and above. Number 4. On the opposite end of the spectrum, Baku of Azerbaijan is the lowest capital city on Earth, sitting just 28 meters below, yes below, sea level. This also makes it the largest big city on Earth found below sea level. Number 5. Tokyo isn't just the capital city with the most people living in it, but also the capital with the most Michelin-starred restaurants, with some 194 establishments totaling 251 stars. To put this in perspective, this is more than what the UK has in total, or around the same as what can be found in China and Hong Kong combined. Number 6. The northernmost capital city on Earth depends on your definition of capital cities. If we just stick to UN country capitals, then Reykjavik of Iceland will be the world's most northern capital. If we include territories as well, then you could argue that Longyearbyen of Svalbard could be the world's most northern capital. Number 7. Quite literally on the flip side, the world's most southern capital city belongs to Wellington of New Zealand, which is actually found quite significantly further south than any other capital city on Earth. Next will be Canberra of Australia, followed by Montevideo of Uruguay. Number 8. If going by official ceremonial names, Bangkok is the capital city with the longest name on Earth. Its ceremonial name is the following, and consists of 21 words and 176 characters in total. Number 9. Speaking of Bangkok, the city was also the most visited capital on Earth in 2023, with around 22.7 million visitors. That is the equivalent of the entire population of Burkina Faso visiting the city within the space of a year. Number 10. Excluding Hong Kong, which is a special administrative region of China, the capital city with the most skyscrapers over 150 meters belongs to both Tokyo and Kuala Lumpur of Japan and Malaysia respectively, both with 173. Although it must be noted that due to the threat of earthquakes, Tokyo's skyscrapers are significantly smaller than those found in Kuala Lumpur. Tokyo's tallest building, for example, stands just 325 meters tall, compared to Kuala Lumpur's being 679, which is actually the second tallest building on Earth. Number 11. With a population of just 318 or so people, Gurulmud of Palau is the world's least populated capital city. The country as a whole has a population of just 18,000, meaning just 1.8% of the entire country lives within the capital. Number 12. Excluding city-states and territories, Kuwait is the country whose capital city has the highest percentage of the country's population living in it. In fact, just over 70% of the country's entire population lives in the capital, Kuwait City. Number 13. With an average yearly temperature of just -1.3 degrees Celsius, Ulaanbaatar, the capital of Mongolia, is the world's coldest capital. January and February are exceptionally cold months, with the temperature ranging between -15 and -40 degrees Celsius. Number 14. On the opposite end of the thermometer, the hottest capital on Earth by yearly average is believed to be Khartoum, the capital of Sudan, with their balmy 29.9 degrees Celsius. Now, you might be thinking, that isn't that hot. You might live in a place that often exceeds this temperature. For me in England, not so much. However, remember, this is the average temperature for the entire year, including its winter and all of its nights. Number 15. Excluding Vatican City and San Marino, which are both enclaves of Rome, Italy, the two closest capital cities in the world are Kinshasa and Brazzaville, of the DR Congo and Republic of Congo respectively. At their closest points, they are just 1.6 kilometers away from one another. Number 16. The only letter of the alphabet that does not start a capital city name is X. Then we have Z, U, Q, and surprisingly E, that all only have one capital city whose name begins with the corresponding letter. This is Zagreb, Ulaanbaatar, Quito, and Edinburgh respectively. Number 17. There are multiple countries who have two capital cities, such as Bolivia, Sri Lanka, and Eswatini. But there is only one country on Earth that has three. Yes, three capitals. If you're into geography, you probably know this already. It is of course South Africa. Its three capitals are Cape Town, Bloemfontein, and Pretoria. Number 18. Nauru, which is the third smallest country on Earth, technically has no capital city. In fact, the country doesn't really have any cities at all. Some sources claim that Yaren could act as its de facto capital, as this is where you'll find most of its important buildings. Number 19. The oldest continuously inhabited capital city on Earth belongs to Damascus of Syria, which is believed to have been inhabited since 2500 BC. The city today has a population of some 2.5 million. Number 20. The shortest capital city name on Earth belongs to 14 different capitals, all with 4 letters each. Some examples are Oslo, Lima, Rome, Juba, and Kyiv. Number 21. The capital city which ranks number 1 for views for this channel is London. Around 1.3% of all views have came from this one capital alone. Number 22. The capital city found closest to the equator line belongs to Quito of Ecuador, which comes to no surprise as the country's Spanish name literally means equator. Quito sits about 26 kilometers south of the equator line itself. There is actually a sign you can visit which sits bang on the equator. Number 23. The capital city that is found furthest away from its own territory belongs to Paris of France, which is found some nearly 17,000 kilometers away from New Caledonia in Oceania. Number 24. There are around 450 million French speakers around the world, but what is the most populated French-speaking capital city on Earth? It's got to be Paris, right? Paris's metro population is some 11 million. However, this still does not rank it as number 1, as that would belong to the bustling megacity of Kinshasa in the DR Congo. Number 25. City boundaries around the world are dependent upon many different factors and aren't universally agreed. There are 3 main types of categories: the city proper, its metro population, and its urban population. The population differences for these categories for some capitals is truly crazy. For example, the city proper population of Manila of the Philippines is just 1.8 million, yet its urban population is some 25 million. Number 26. In the year 2023, the most livable capital city was Vienna of Austria. Over the previous decade or so, the Austrian capital ranked within the top 3 every single year. The city regularly ranks high for this ranking due to its stability, reliable infrastructure, and strong health and education services. Number 27. On the flip side, Damascus of Syria was the least livable capital city on Earth for 2023. Of course, this is unfortunately due to the ongoing civil war leading to instability, death, and destruction. Now, this is extremely saddening due to it also being the oldest continuously inhabited capital. As previously mentioned, many of its historic sites have been completely wiped out. Number 28. This is Panama City, the capital of course, Panama. It is the city with the most skyscrapers over 150 meters in Latin America, with 67. Honestly, if you were to show this image to most people, they'd probably think it's a city in the US, the Middle East, or perhaps somewhere in Asia. Yet it is found in Central America, a place not really associated with modern looking skylines like this. Number 29. At 4,624 millimeters of rainfall per year, this makes Monrovia, the capital of Liberia, the wettest capital on Earth. For reference, New York City gets around 1,100, so around 4 times less than in Monrovia. Number 30. By metro area, which capital do you think is the most populated in Europe, and how does it rank compared to the rest of the world? Well, sitting in 10th place with a population of some 20 million, Moscow is the most populated European capital. For the most populated capital city in Europe, excluding transcontinental countries, London will be the most populated, with around 14 million. Number 31. According to TomTom's traffic index, London is the capital city with the worst traffic on Earth. The average travel time per 10 kilometers is 37 minutes and 20 seconds, with an average rush hour speed of just 14 kilometers an hour. It is worth noting, however, that not all capital cities are part of this index. Number 32. In terms of property prices, Monaco, the capital of course, Monaco, is the world's most expensive. Some figures suggest that the average property price is around 3.2 million euros. Number 33. Cape Town, one of 3 of South Africa's capitals, is thought to be the world's most dangerous city in terms of murder rates. The capital has a murder rate of 63 homicides per 100,000 people, or around 3,000 homicides across its nearly 5 million population per year. For reference, number 1 is Colima in Mexico with a murder rate 3 times higher. Number 34. There are 5 countries whose capital city is the exact same name as the country, being Luxembourg, Monaco, San Marino, Singapore, and Vatican City. There are also several other countries who have very similar names to their capitals, such as Mexico City, Panama City, Andorra la Vella, and Kuwait City. Number 35. Norway's capital, Oslo, is the greenest capital city on Earth. Some 72% of the Norwegian capital is covered with greenery or eco-friendly buildings. Number 36. In 2023, Singapore, which is of course the capital of Singapore, ranked as the world's most expensive capital city to live in. The city-state ranked equal first with Zurich, which of course isn't the Swiss capital, leading to Singapore officially being the world's most expensive capital. Number 37. The continent with the most capital cities on Earth is Africa. There are 54 sovereign states across the continent, but in fact up to 64 capital cities. This is due to many African countries having more than one capital, as well as there being some disputed regions. Number 38. The continent with the least amount of capital cities would be Antarctica, with 0, as there are no countries there. If we exclude Antarctica, then the next continent with the least amount of capital cities would be Australia, as there is just 1, Canberra. But if you exclude Australia as a continent and lump it in with Oceania, then South America would have the least amount of capital cities, with 12 or 13 if you include French Guiana. Number 39. By metro area, can you guess which South American capital city is the most populated and where it ranks compared to all cities on Earth? Well, ranking as the 17th most populated city on the planet, the Argentinian capital of Buenos Aires has a population of some 15 million. Number 40. This is Equatorial Guinea, a tiny West African nation. Its capital is Malabo. Now, looking at this map, can you see what makes the capital so special? Yep, the country's capital is found not on the mainland of the country, but in fact on an island northwest of the rest of the country, making its capital closer to both Cameroon and Nigeria than the rest of Equatorial Guinea. Number 41. The 2 most distant capital cities on Earth is slightly complicated. Let's take a look. So Paraguay actually recognizes Taiwan as an independent nation, so by their regard, their 2 capitals, Asuncion and Taipei, are the most distant capital cities on Earth, at just under 20,000 kilometers. However, if we go by UN recognised countries, then Wellington of New Zealand and Madrid of Spain would be the most distant at 19,800 kilometres. Number 42. Berlin, the capital of Germany, actually has more bridges than Venice, Italy. It has around 1,700 bridges spanning across its waterways. Number 43. The US has a lot of capitals if you take into account states and territories. There are 50 states, each having its own capital, then the country has a capital itself, taking us to 51, then the US has 14 territories across the planet. However, most are uninhabited atolls. If we just take into account inhabited territories, then the US could technically have up to 56 capitals. Number 44. At the time of making this video, the most recent country to move its capital is Palau, who moved its capital from Koror City to Gorilmud in 2006. Again, depending on when you're watching this video, this may have changed, as there are a few countries such as Indonesia and Egypt who are in the process of moving their capitals. Number 45. According to the CIA World Factbook, the 100th most populated capital city on Earth by metro population is Nur Sultan, the capital city of Kazakhstan, with a population of some 1.2 million. A slightly higher population than 101st place Islamabad, but just less than Dublin of Ireland. Number 46. Valletta, the capital city of Malta, is found just 355 kilometers away from Tripoli, the capital city of Libya. This is one of the shortest distances between two capitals that are found on different continents. Number 47. It is possible to walk from Lisbon, the capital of Portugal, to Singapore, whilst not crossing any body of water. The walk would take around 139 days, travelling some nearly 15,000 kilometers. Number 48. Vietnam has one of the lowest ratios in the world when it comes to its capital city's population versus its most populous city. So its capital, Hanoi, has a population of some 8.1 million. Yet its most populated is Ho Chi Minh City, whose population is some 9 million. This gives a ratio of around 1.1. Let's compare this to, say, Australia, where Sydney is more than 12 times more populated than the capital, Canberra. Number 49. According to a quiz taken over 3.8 million times, Gorilmud, the capital city of Palau, is the world's least known capital city. Only 14% of people who took the quiz were able to guess it. On the opposite end of the spectrum, Paris scored first with 92%. And finally, number 50. The three most populated capital cities on Earth by urban area combine for a total population of around 100 million people. This is a higher population than that of Vietnam, the 15th most populated country on the planet. So let's imagine the Panama Canal in our heads on a world map. For me, it always cut through the country of Panama from east to west or vice versa. However, this isn't actually the case. The canal runs through the country vertically from north to south. The man-made canal starts near the city of Colón in the north and then empties out into the Panama Bay not far from the capital, Panama City. Number 2. Finland is not Scandinavian. So when people think of Scandinavia, they may assume that it's this clump of countries here. However, the term Scandinavia only includes Norway, Denmark and Sweden. The term Scandinavian is not interchangeable with the Nordics, which does include Finland as well as Iceland. Number 3. The Sahara Desert is not the largest desert on Earth. Now, I guarantee if you were to go out in public and ask 100 random people what the largest desert on Earth is, the absolute vast majority would confidently answer with the Sahara, which is technically not true. To be classified as a desert, a region has to receive less than 10 inches of rain per year. And as it doesn't really rain but snow in Antarctica, the Antarctic desert is by far the largest on Earth. It is in fact about 50% larger than the Sahara. However, in terms of non-polar deserts, the Sahara is the largest. Number 4. New York City is not the capital of New York State. Again, if you were to ask 100 random people on the street, I almost guarantee everyone would say that New York City is the capital of New York State, as this is the most logical answer, right? However, with the seat of the New York State government being found in Albany, this makes it the capital of the state. Albany is found around 250 kilometers north of New York City, just west of the border with Massachusetts. Number 5. Now, it's fair to say that North Korea and Finland are very far away from one another. In fact, some nearly 7,000 kilometers. So most people would probably think that you'd have to travel through several countries in order to get from one to the other. However, it is completely possible to drive from Pyongyang, North Korea to Helsinki, Finland by crossing just one country. That country, of course, being Russia. Number 6. So if you were to ask most people what the closest country to Australia is, many people may instantly reply with New Zealand. However, this isn't the case, as both Indonesia and Papua New Guinea are easily closer. Number 7. Which city do you think is the largest within the Mediterranean region? It's gotta be a city from Greece, Italy, Spain, or France, right? Well, it's actually a city found in Africa. It is Alexandria of Egypt, a city which you might not perhaps first associate with the Med. If you did know this, then that's pretty darn impressive. The population of Alexandria is just over 6 million. The next largest would be Barcelona, whose metro population is around 5.5 million. Barcelona is also home to the headquarters of the Union for the Mediterranean. Number 8. When you think of the islands of the Pacific, you likely think of islands like these. Tropical paradises full of palm trees and coral reefs. However, not all Pacifican island chains look like this. These are the Aleutian Islands found off the coast of Alaska in the North Pacific. These islands are mountainous in nature and can get pretty chilly, seeing snowfall, ice sand, even icebergs. Number 9. The UK, England and Great Britain are not interchangeable terms. Now, being from the UK, this is of course common knowledge for me. However, I've lost count at the amount of times I've had to explain the differences between the terms to people when I've been travelling abroad. The UK is the sovereign nation made up out of England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. Great Britain is this landmass here, which includes England, Wales and Scotland. It is not a country. And then England is this country here, which is part of the 4 which make up the UK. A little complicated, I do understand. This means that the term British and English are also not interchangeable, as being English means you're from England, but being British also includes those from Wales and Scotland. Number 10. The Sahara Desert is not the driest non-polar desert on Earth. That title belongs to the Atacama Desert found in South America. The Atacama is said to only receive 0.6 inches of rainfall per year, significantly lower than that of the Sahara. Some parts of the Atacama haven't seen rain in over 500 years. Number 11. Although perhaps the most well-known, the Dead Sea is not the saltiest body of water on Earth. With a salinity level of around 33%, the Dead Sea is most certainly a very salty place. However, the Don Juan Pond in Antarctica is thought to have a salinity level of some 44%. Number 12. Although home to the world's tallest mountain and arguably the most well-known mountain range on Earth, the Himalayas is not the longest. The Himalayan mountain range stretches some 2,500 kilometers across Asia, whereas the Andes in South America stretches some 7,500 kilometers, some 3 times longer. Number 13. Even though the US is by far the richest country on Earth in terms of GDP, as well as having its currency used in many countries across the world, the US dollar is not actually the world's strongest currency. At the time of making this video, it actually ranks 10th. The Kuwaiti dinar ranks first, where $1 US will get you around 0.31 dinars. Number 14. This is another incorrect fact that I've personally came across many times, especially when I was traveling throughout South America. Most people assume that Mexico and Central America is part of South America. It logically makes sense as they are all more culturally and linguistically tied to the continent. However, all 8 countries in this region, alongside those in the Caribbean, are actually North American. When you look at a world map, the most northern parts of Mexico are actually more further north than many major American cities such as Miami, Orlando or Houston. Number 15. Although the Portuguese live a very Mediterranean lifestyle, Portugal is not Mediterranean. The climate, food and culture is of very Mediterranean style, but the country does not have any contact with the Mediterranean Sea. It sits west and southwest of Spain and only has coast along the Atlantic. Number 16. Although Venice is perhaps the most famous canal city on Earth, it does not have the most canals nor the longest. For example, both Birmingham in England and Amsterdam have more. Number 17. The Amazon is not the largest forest on Earth. Although perhaps the most famous forest on the planet, it is nowhere near the largest. It is the largest rainforest, however. The award for the largest forest on Earth goes to the taiga, which stretches across North America, Europe and Asia for some 17 million kilometers squared, almost 3 times larger than the Amazon. Number 18. Of the US's 50 states, which do you think has the most southern point? If you imagine the world map in your head, it's got to be Florida, right? Well, that is correct for the contiguous states, but if you include Hawaii, then this is where you'll find the country's most southern point. Number 19. Now imagine Mexico in your head on a world map. For me, South America sits pretty much directly below it. However, this isn't true. Mexico is easily found further west than the entirety of the South American landmass. Another one that doesn't seem right until you look at a world map. Number 20. The UK is commonly referred to as being a Western country, meaning it sits within the Western Hemisphere. However, as Prime Meridian runs straight through London, this means that part of England, such as Cambridge, Norwich or Dover, are in the Eastern Hemisphere. The same hemisphere as the likes of Beijing, Tokyo or Jakarta. Number 21. Mont Blanc is arguably the most iconic and famous mountain in all of Europe. It is also pretty tall. Most people would likely assume that it's the tallest on the continent. However, it isn't the tallest nor even the second tallest. The tallest is in fact Mount Elbrus found in Russia, followed by Mount Saqqara in Georgia. Number 22. The Northern Lights are one of the greatest wonders of planet Earth. The people who live up north must be so lucky to see them, right? However, it isn't just those living in the northern parts of the world that get to see this wonder, as the Southern Lights are also a thing. The Aurora Australis can be seen across parts of Australia, New Zealand and Antarctica, to name but a few places. Number 23. Which US state do you think has the most islands? I'd guess that most people would probably instantly assume Hawaii. However, there is actually a state who has around 20 times more islands. Any ideas which state? Well, with some 2,670 islands, Alaska has by far the most, which comes to no surprise given the fact it is also by far the largest. Number 24. When you think of Siberia, you likely think of freezing cold, miserable conditions. However, the region can get very hot in the summer. The highest temperature ever recorded in the region was 38 degrees Celsius in June of 2020. Number 25. Although the term 7 seas has been used throughout history, there are far more than 7 seas around the world. A sea is effectively a part of an ocean that is surrounded by land, to which there is no defined amount. Although some sources claim about 50. At 5.5 million kilometers squared, the Philippine Sea is said to be the largest. Number 26. When you imagine Greenland, you likely imagine it to be covered in ice, snow and glaciers, which for the most part is absolutely correct. However, there are some parts of the island along its southern coast that are ice-free, such as its Kingwa Valley, where you'll actually find forest. Number 27. Although Cyprus is more culturally and politically linked to Europe and is literally part of the European Union, it is geographically actually part of Asia, meaning the people there could technically be classed as Asian. Number 28. Believe it or not, Europe actually does have a desert. The Tabernas Desert can be found in southeastern Spain. Although very small at just 280 kilometers squared, it is still classed as Europe's only desert. Number 29. It makes sense to think that all EU countries use the euro, which is true for the most part. However, in fact, 7 countries do not use this currency, being Bulgaria, Czechia, Denmark, Hungary, Poland, Romania and Sweden, meaning the other 20 do. And finally, number 30. We'll finish with another fact that is hard to believe. So again, let's visualize a world map in our heads. Let's think of where Cairo and Miami are both plotted in their respective countries. Surely Cairo is found further south than Miami, right? Well, this isn't the case. Cairo is actually found slightly further north than the city of Miami in Florida. The Southern Hemisphere contains all or parts of 5 continents. That's Antarctica, Australia, about 90% of South America, 1/3 of Africa, and several islands off the continental mainland of Asia. Number 2. The Southern Hemisphere is home to 4 oceans: the Indian, South Atlantic, Southern, and Pacific. The Pacific is the world's largest ocean, with around half of it being located in the Southern Hemisphere, which coincidentally is about roughly the same size as the Atlantic. Number 3. The Southern Hemisphere's surface is around 81% water, compared to 60% water in the Northern Hemisphere. The Southern Hemisphere contains around 33% of Earth's land. Number 4. Around 850 million people live in the Southern Hemisphere, so that is around 10% of all humans existing in 1/3 of Earth's land, making it much more sparsely populated than the North. Number 5. There are a total of 32 countries in the Southern Hemisphere. This does include those who stretch into the north as well. Number 6. By urban area, Jakarta is the most populated city in the Southern Hemisphere, with a population of nearly 34 million, which in fact ranks it as the 2nd most populated on Earth. Jakarta is also one of only 2 Asian capitals located in the south. The other is Dili of East Timor. Number 7. The most populated country in the Southern Hemisphere would be Indonesia, whose population is around 250 million. However, as Indonesia stretches across both hemispheres, the most populated country that is solely found in the Southern Hemisphere is Tanzania, at around 60 million. Tanzania is the 23rd most populated country on Earth. Number 8. Australia is the most developed country in the Southern Hemisphere according to the Human Development Index. It has a score of 0.951, the 5th highest on Earth. The next most developed country would be Chile, which ranks 42nd in the world with a score of 0.855. Number 9. Speaking of Australia, it is also the largest country by land size that is found solely in the Southern Hemisphere, at around 7.7 million kilometers squared. It is the 6th largest country on Earth. The 4 largest countries are found solely in the Northern Hemisphere, and then 5th place Brazil stretches across both hemispheres. Number 10. The most widespread religions in the Southern Hemisphere are Christianity in South America, Southern Africa and Australia/New Zealand, followed by Islam in most of the islands of Indonesia and in parts of southeastern Africa, and Hinduism, which is mostly concentrated on the island of Bali and neighbouring islands. Number 11. Sydney is the most important global financial city in the Southern Hemisphere, ranking 13th overall. This means that the top 12, and in fact top 20 cities minus Sydney, are all in the north for the highest ranking financial centres. Number 12. Cyclones and tropical storms spin clockwise in the Southern Hemisphere. That's as opposed to anti-clockwise in the Northern Hemisphere. This is due to the Coriolis effect. Number 13. The largest economy in the Southern Hemisphere belongs to Brazil. Again, if we exclude Brazil, who stretches across both hemispheres, then it would be Australia, with a GDP of around $1.7 trillion US. Number 14. At just shy of 7,000 meters tall, Aconcagua is the tallest mountain in the Southern Hemisphere. The mountain is found in Argentina's west coast, not too far from the border with Chile. Now this mountain is tall, but what's absolutely mind-blowing is that it doesn't even rank in the top 100 tallest mountains on Earth. Number 15. The tallest building in the Southern Hemisphere belongs to Indonesia. The Autograph Tower in Jakarta stands 383 meters tall. The building officially opened towards the end of 2022, meaning it stole a crown from Auckland's Sky Tower, which is 55 meters shorter. Even though it is the tallest building in the Southern Hemisphere, it only ranks 51st in the world. Out of the 91 tallest buildings on Earth, this is the only building to feature from the south. Number 16. The longest river that is found solely in the Southern Hemisphere is the Paraná. a river that runs through Brazil, Paraguay and Argentina for some 4,880 kilometers long. This makes it the longest in the Southern Hemisphere and the 8th longest on Earth. Number 17. Excluding Antarctica, the UK is technically home to the most southern territory on Earth. As its overseas territory, the South Georgia and South Sandwich Islands sits 59 degrees south. Excluding this, however, Chile would be awarded as the country with the most southern tip, at 56 degrees south. Number 18. The world's second least corrupt nation on Earth, that's New Zealand, is in the Southern Hemisphere. The world's most corrupt country, Somalia, also is in the Southern Hemisphere. However, it is an equatorial country, meaning it stretches across both hemispheres. Number 19. The largest island in the Southern Hemisphere is New Guinea, stretching for a distance of around 786,000 kilometers squared. Only Greenland in the north is a larger island. Number 20. At over $60,000 US, Australia is the richest country in the Southern Hemisphere in terms of GDP per capita. This ranks them as the 15th richest people on the planet. Number 21. Nauru and Tuvalu are the Southern Hemisphere's smallest and least populated countries respectively. Excluding the city-states of Vatican City and Monaco, they would also be the smallest on Earth. Number 22. With the vast majority of humans living in the Northern Hemisphere, this makes the South significantly less polluted. In fact, there are only 2 countries within the top 50 most polluted, and both of those are equatorial, meaning they are in both the Northern and Southern Hemisphere. Number 23. There isn't a single country in the Southern Hemisphere that has a nuclear weapon. There are an estimated 13,000 nuclear weapons on the planet, all of which belong to countries in the Northern Hemisphere. However, this doesn't go to say that countries from the Northern Hemisphere don't have some of their missiles in the South. Number 24. There are 13 countries in total that are classed as equatorial, meaning they are located on the equator. This also means that their territory stretches into both the Northern and Southern Hemisphere. Indonesia is the most populated of these countries, whilst Brazil is the largest in terms of land size. Number 25. Can you think of which country has the shortest name in the world? Well, there are 10 countries around the world with 4 letters in total. Of those 10 countries, just 2 are located in the Southern Hemisphere. They are Fiji and Peru. Number 26. On the other hand, the country with the longest name in the Southern Hemisphere, I guarantee you will not get. It is the Independent and Sovereign Republic of Kiribati. Now, of course, most people haven't even heard of this country, let alone know its full name in its entirety. And it's an equatorial country, meaning it's found in both hemispheres. For the country with the longest one-word name that is just in the Southern Hemisphere, I believe that would be Madagascar, at 10 characters long. Number 27. At nearly 69,000 kilometers squared, Lake Victoria of Tanzania, Uganda and Kenya is the largest lake in the Southern Hemisphere, and the 3rd largest overall. The very top of the lake sits just in the Northern Hemisphere, so even if we removed this part of the lake, it would still highly likely be the 3rd largest in the world, as the next largest is around 10,000 kilometers squared smaller. Number 28. Technically, the world's largest desert exists solely within the Southern Hemisphere. The Antarctic is classed as a polar ice and tundra desert at over 14 million kilometers squared. The only country larger than this is Russia. Excluding this desert, the largest desert in the Southern Hemisphere is the Great Australian Desert, ranking 4th largest in the world at around 2.7 million kilometers squared, or about the same size as Kazakhstan or Argentina. Number 29. At nearly 350,000 kilometers squared and 2,300 kilometers long, the Great Barrier Reef isn't just the largest reef in the Southern Hemisphere, but the largest reef on Earth, as well as the largest living structure on Earth, stretching from about halfway up Australia's east coast to the very northeastern tip. And finally, number 30. According to a poll we ran on the channel a few months ago, 20% of our viewers live in the Southern Hemisphere, a slightly higher average than the actual population split between the hemispheres. Now, there are 2 reasons why I think this is. One is that 5 countries in the Northern Hemisphere, including China, the world's most populated country, have blocked YouTube. The second reason is that some of our most viewed videos are to do with Australia and New Zealand, which obviously attracts people from those countries. Although being middle-aged is a rough term, let's say about half of your country's average life expectancy, this would mean that the Central African Republic, who has the lowest life expectancy in the world, would see their middle age at around 27 years. Number 2. You might have heard this one in one of our recent videos, but the Great Wall of China, you guessed it, China, stretches for a longer distance than the distance from London to Auckland, and then across to Sydney. It is also over 3 times longer than the world's longest river, the Nile. Number 3. If Siberia was to remove itself from Russia and become its own individual nation, it would become the world's largest country by land size. Number 4. The Nordics, which are considered to be a very wealthy, highly developed region, has a total GDP of less than that of half of California's. Number 5. The average resident in Monaco is 37.7 years older than the average person from Niger, the world's youngest country by average age. Number 6. Switzerland, a country of less than 9 million people, has an economy size larger than that of Nigeria, Ethiopia and Algeria, who together have a population of around 350 million. Wow. Number 7. Japan's most southern point is closer to the equator than Dubai. I mean, this one is kind of clutching at straws, as Japan's most southern point is an uninhabited island located over 1,000 kilometers away from the mainland. Number 8. Jakarta, Indonesia is closer to Perth in Western Australia than Sydney, at 3,000 and 3,300 kilometers respectively. Number 9. Quite a straightforward and simple one, but it is pretty nuts. 7.2 billion people live in the Northern Hemisphere. Number 10. By city proper measurements, China is home to 15 of the 20 largest cities in the world by land area, with Chongqing being the largest at 82,400 kilometers squared. It is worth noting, however, that the way that China defines what a city's boundaries are is different to the rest of the world. Number 11. Over 70% of Kuwait's entire population lives in just one city, its capital, Kuwait City. This is the highest in the world, excluding city-states. Number 12. The lowest temperature ever recorded in the United States was -62 degrees Celsius. The highest was 56.7. That's a 118 degrees Celsius difference. Number 13. Nauru, the world's smallest country, is only 6 times larger than Central Park in New York City. Number 14. Africa as an entire continent has a GDP lower than that of the UK, a country with less than 70 million people versus around 1.4 billion. Number 15. The Amazon rainforest is of course located in Brazil, so that's a lot of trees, right? Well, it's got nothing on Russia, who has more than double, at an estimated 302 and 642 billion respectively. Canada also has more trees than Brazil, around 16 billion more. Number 16. At 1,864 people per kilometer squared, Bahrain is the world's most densely populated country. This is excluding city-states and autonomous regions. If we were to include those, then Macau of China would become the most densely populated at a ridiculous 20,800 people per kilometer squared. Number 17. Over a quarter of all humans on the planet right now are under the age of 15. That's around 2 billion people. Number 18. Just 3% of the entire African population are over the age of 65, compared to 18% in Europe, the lowest and highest for any continent respectively. Number 19. The greatest distance between any 2 points in the United States is a mind-blowing 9,400 kilometers squared. From Kure Atoll, Hawaii to Log Point, Florida, as the crow flies. That's about the same distance from London to Bangkok. Number 20. The distance between the lowest lying capital city by sea level in the world and the highest is 3,668 meters. That is Baku, Azerbaijan, and La Paz of Bolivia respectively. For reference, 3,668 meters is about 43% of the height of Mount Everest. Number 21. Now this one is nice and simple, but always surprises people when I tell them. Rome, Barcelona and Istanbul are all roughly the same latitude as New York City. Number 22. At 44.7 homicides per 100,000 people, Jamaica has the highest murder rate in the world. That was 1,323 murders in 2020. For reference, their population is less than 3 million. Number 23. More people live in Hong Kong at 7.6 million people than in Western Australia and Mongolia combined, a region of around 4 million kilometers squared. Number 24. Greenland is home to the world's largest national park. It spans around 1 million kilometers squared. If this region was a country, it would be the 30th largest in the world. Number 25. The largest French-speaking city in the world in terms of population does not belong to France nor Canada, but in fact a Central African country. Kinshasa of the DR Congo is a megacity of around 17 million people. Number 26. Luxembourg is filthy rich. It boasts an estimated GDP per capita of around $127,000 US. For reference, the USA, the world's richest country by GDP, has a GDP per capita of around 75,000. Number 27. On the other hand, Burundi ranks as the poorest country on Earth according to the World Bank on GDP per capita, at just $293. That's 433 times poorer than the people of Luxembourg. Number 28. Kiribati, located in the Central Pacific Ocean, is the only country on Earth located in all 4 hemispheres. Number 29. There could be upwards of 2 million lakes in Canada. This is more than the rest of the world combined. Number 30. Speaking of lakes, the world's largest lake is actually the Caspian Sea, which is technically a lake even though its name doesn't suggest so. The Caspian Sea, or lake, spans 371,000 kilometers squared. This is actually 4.5 times larger than the second largest lake, Lake Superior, which isn't superior in this case, which of course is found in Canada. Number 31. Now, which country do you think has the most islands? It's got to be somewhere like Indonesia or the Philippines, right? Well, nope, it is actually a country to the naked eye which looks like it has not many at all, if any. It is Sweden. Sweden has over 221,000 islands. Number 32. At just 2.1% of the adult population, Vietnam is the least obese country in the world. Nauru, on the other hand, is the world's most obese country, at a crazy 61% of the adult population. Number 33. Now, if you've ever been to Dubai, you know just how ridiculously tall the Burj Khalifa is. It is the world's tallest building. I've been to the top and can confirm it is ridiculous how tall this thing is. Well, put 10 Burj Khalifas on top of each other and you have Mount Everest. This really just puts it into perspective as to how hard it really is to climb the world's tallest mountain. Number 34. Something really cool that I discovered recently is the term pole of inaccessibility. This, quite simply, is a given point in a region that is the furthest away from the ocean. Asia's pole of inaccessibility, for example, is located around here, in northwestern China, near the Kazakhstan border. Number 35. China and Russia both set the record for sharing the most land borders. This includes each other. China, however, just takes the win, as the total length of its land borders stretches around 2,000 kilometers more than Russia's. Number 36. Excluding the countries which have no forest whatsoever, Oman is the world's least forested country, at just 0.01% of its land. Number 37. The distance between Asia's most western and eastern point is over 8,000 kilometers. That is Cape Baba in Turkey and Big Diomede in very eastern Russia. Number 38. So I think we can all agree, most of the world's highest ranking countries for the Peace Index are some of the richest, most well-developed in the world, right? Well, not in the case of the USA. They rank as the 129th most peaceful country in the world. Number 39. Now, I absolutely love this fact. France's longest border is Brazil, as French Guiana shares a 730-kilometer long border with South America's largest country. For mainland France, it would be Spain at 623 kilometers. And finally, number 40. If you were to equally distribute the entire estimated economy of Earth, that's 96 trillion US dollars, between the entire human race, that's around 8 billion, each person would be worth around 12,000 US dollars. As Africa's current GDP per capita is around $2,000, this would instantly make the continent 6 times richer. It's hard to argue against the fact that Canada is one of, if not the single most geographically beautiful countries on the planet. It's a gigantic country with so many different terrains and landscapes to offer. Search Google or YouTube for the world's most beautiful countries and I guarantee Canada will be in the top 5 or 3, if not first. So in this video we're going to give you 25 interesting facts about Canada's geography. We'll start off with some quite basic and general facts before moving on to some more intriguing and lesser known ones. So first things first, let's start with its size. As mentioned earlier, it is gigantic. So coming in at just under 10 million kilometers squared, Canada is the second largest country on the planet, only behind Russia. 10 million kilometers squared is roughly the same size as Oceania and Africa's largest countries combined. That's Australia and Algeria. This is how Canada compares to the size of Europe, South America, and Central Africa. It is worth noting, however, that Canada's size is horribly distorted on a traditional world map, which makes it look bigger than it actually is. Number 2. According to the World Factbook and the World Resources Institute, Canada has the most coastline out of all countries on Earth, and by quite some distance. The prior states 202,000 kilometers and the latter 265,000 kilometers. For reference, Norway comes in second with just 83,000 kilometers. Number 3. At around 52,500, Canada ranks 4th in the world for the country with the most islands, only behind the Nordic countries of Sweden, Norway and Finland. This comes to no surprise as when you look at Canada on a map, its northern regions are dominated by islands. The big difference between Canada's islands and the islands of the Nordics is that Canada's are much larger. Speaking of large islands, Canada is home to the world's largest uninhabited island. At around 55,000 kilometers squared, Devon Island is ever so slightly smaller than the country of Croatia. The island is found here, deep in Canada's north, not too far from the shores of Greenland. Number 5. At an unbelievable 880,000, Canada ranks first in the world for the country with the most lakes. It has over 4 times the amount of second place Russia, and in fact more lakes than the rest of the world combined. A truly insane fact that is hard to believe. What's kind of interesting, however, is that 3 of its 5 largest are all shared with the US, as they sit on the border of the two countries. These lakes being Superior, Huron and Erie respectively. Number 6. Found in Canada's northwest, not far from its border with Alaska, you will find Mount Logan, whose peak is the highest point across the entire country, standing some 5,250 meters tall. This also ranks it as the second tallest mountain in all of North America, and the 7th tallest across all of the Americas. Number 7. Now, when you think of Canada, do you think of it as a hot or cold country? Generally, I see it as rather chilly. However, this isn't always the case, as temperatures can get extremely hot here. In fact, the highest temperature ever recorded was a sizzling 49.6 degrees Celsius in British Columbia in June of 2021. On the other hand, the coldest temperature ever recorded in the country was a mind-boggling -63 degrees Celsius. That's a temperature range of 112.6 degrees Celsius. Number 8. In terms of the entire country's extreme points, this is as far north as you can get. This is as far south as you can get, and as far west and far east. The distances between these points is truly staggering. Its north to south is similar to Finland to Egypt. Number 9. Excluding countries with overseas territories spread out across the world, Canada, alongside Russia, sets the record for the country touching the most oceans. Canada has coastline along the Atlantic, Pacific and Arctic Oceans. Number 10. When it comes to subdivisions of countries, Canada is home to the 5th largest on the planet. Nunavut, which is found in the country's far northeast, covers an area of just under 2 million kilometers squared. If this region became its own independent country, it would rank as the 14th largest. That's larger than Mexico, Indonesia or Sudan. Number 11. Canada only has one land border, which sets an impressive record as the longest on Earth. This border is shared with the contiguous US to the south and with Alaska to the west, totaling some 8,891 kilometers in length. The Alaska-Canada portion of this border accounts for just over a quarter of the entire length. Number 12. At some 3.5 million kilometers squared, Canada is the country with the 3rd most forest on Earth, only behind Russia and Brazil. 3.5 million kilometers squared, by the way, is larger than the country of India. When it comes to the amount of individual trees, Canada is thought to rank 2nd with around 320 billion. But when it comes to trees per capita, Canada smashes most countries on Earth, with around 95,000. Number 13. Canada is divided into 15 major terrestrial and 5 marine ecozones. Some of its major biomes are the tundra, boreal forest, grassland, and temperate forest. Number 14. The distance from mainland Canada's most eastern to western point is 5,000 kilometers. That's about the same distance as the crow flies as a distance from London, England to Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. In doing so, you would pass through 12 different countries along this route. Number 15. Canada isn't a country that is particularly known as a country that sees many natural disasters, or big ones for that matter. It does of course get them, but nothing like the ones you'll see in India, the Philippines, or in the Caribbean for example. However, in 1775, Canada experienced its deadliest ever natural disaster, excluding diseases. The 1775 Newfoundland hurricane is thought to have killed over 4,000 people. The hurricane was so big that there's actually debates whether it was 1 or 2 combined. Number 16. Although Niagara Falls is possibly the most famous waterfall in Canada, and the US for that matter, it is nowhere near the tallest, as that belongs to James Bruce Falls, which has a height of 840 meters, ever so slightly higher than the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. Number 17. At 1.23 million kilometers squared, the Hudson Bay is the world's 2nd largest bay, only after the Bay of Bengal, which is roughly double the size by the way. For reference, 1.23 million kilometers squared is a larger area than the country of South Africa, or in terms of water, just over 3 times larger than the Caspian Sea, which is technically the world's largest lake. Number 18. Alert is said to be the world's most northerly permanently inhabited settlement, although the people that live there are only there for work purposes and only there temporarily. However, in this settlement, for roughly 151 days of the year, that's from the 14th of April to the 29th of August, the sun simply does not set. This phenomenon is known as the midnight sun. The opposite is also true, in which the sun doesn't rise for some 136 days from the 14th of October until February 27th. This is known as the polar night. Number 19. When it comes to UNESCO World Heritage Sites for natural geography, Canada ranks equal 3rd in the world with 11, tied with Russia. Some of its most notable sites being of course the Rockies, its Dinosaur National Park, and most recently Anticosti, which is the largest island found in Quebec and home to many records of prehistoric life. Number 20. At an average elevation of 487 meters, Canada is higher than most countries on Earth. The topography of the country looks like this, with the west part of the country being notably higher than, say, the southeast. At 1,128 meters, British Columbia on average is the highest province. If British Columbia were its own country, it would rank as the 24th highest. Number 21. If sea levels around the world were to magically decrease by 1,000 meters, this is how Canada would look. It would likely add another few million kilometers squared of land onto its already gigantic size. Most of its lakes and its Hudson Bay would also cease to exist. Its territory would expand into Greenland, connecting the two landmasses together. Number 22. Canada is home to the world's largest vertical drop. Found in the country's deep northeast, not far from Greenland, you will find Mount Thor, which looks like this. If you were to step off the edge at the peak, you'd fall for an incredible 1,250 meters. That's 1.5 Burj Khalifas. You'd easily reach terminal velocity before smashing to your inevitable death. Number 23. At just 2.6 kilometers squared, which for reference is smaller than New York's Central Park, Canada is home to the world's smallest desert. Well, kind of. The Cracross Desert is found in Canada's northwest, not far from its border with Alaska. Although it appears to be of desert-like conditions, it doesn't meet the official desert requirements. Number 24. Now, looking at this map of Canada, where would you expect its geographical center point to be? Well, the center point of the country is actually slightly disputed, but a lot of sources have it as this point right here in the province of Nunavut, not far from the Hudson Bay. And finally, number 25. So as mentioned earlier, this is Canada's most southern point. Now, when you imagine Canada, you just picture it sitting above the US, right? Well, that is technically true, but also kind of not true in this regard. This point here is actually further south than 14 US states. It's in fact so far south that it's more southern than both North and South Dakota. Another one that's hard to believe is that this point is only 1,200 kilometers from Florida. Moscow, Istanbul and London are the three most populated cities in Europe by urban area, with 17.7, 15.3 and 11.2 million respectively. By city limits population, however, Istanbul is the most populated, followed by Moscow and then London, with 15.3, 12.5 and 9 respectively. Number 2. The tallest building in Europe is in St. Petersburg in Russia. Soaring into the sky like a glass shard. The Lakhta Center is a whopping 460 meters in height. There are 87 stories in total. For reference, it is not far off half the size of the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. Number 3. English is the most spoken language on the continent, with 51% of the population being able to speak it as a first or second language. German comes in second at 32%, and then French third at 26%. Number 4. Russia is the most populated country in Europe, as more than half of Russia's population is found in its European section, around 110 million in total. However, as mentioned earlier, Russia of course spans across Europe and Asia, which is called Eurasia. For the country with the highest population that is purely in Europe, it will be Germany at just under 84 million. Number 5. The geographical center point of Europe is a village named Pernuskes in Lithuania, located roughly 26 kilometers from its capital, Vilnius. Number 6. Europe is the second smallest continent in size at just over 10 million kilometers squared, making it just larger than the United States, but just a third of the size of the continent of Africa. Number 7. Despite the continent being the second smallest by area, it has the third largest population, with around 748 million people. Number 8. Europe is entirely in the northern hemisphere, and most of the continent's landmass is in the eastern hemisphere. This is quite ironic, as the continent, along with America, is often referred to as the West. Number 9. North Cape is the most northern point on the European landmass. Punta de Tarifa in Spain is the most southern point. Cabo da Roca Algarve in Portugal is the most western point, and finally the most eastern point is actually undecided and is different depending on your definition of European borders. It lies somewhere in the Ural watershed. Number 10. European mammal fauna consists of 270 species, 78 of them endemic to Europe, 15% of them are threatened with extinction, and 27% have been identified as declining. Number 11. The most expensive house in Europe, and in fact the world, is Buckingham Palace, valued at just under $3 billion. It comprises of 775 rooms, 78 bathrooms, 92 offices, and 19 staterooms. Number 12. At 19.5 million, London was the most visited city in Europe in 2019, pre-pandemic, making it the third most visited city in the world behind Hong Kong and Bangkok. Number 13. The three largest countries in Europe are Russia, Ukraine, and France. The part of Russia that is found in Europe is bigger than any other country on the continent. Number 14. The smallest country in Europe, and in fact the world, is the Vatican City. It is the smallest both by land area and population. Number 15. Norway has 83,000 kilometers of coastline, the longest coastline in Europe and the second longest in the world, only behind Canada. Number 16. There are 24 official languages in Europe, but more like 200 languages that are actually spoken around the continent. Number 17. In 2019, 7 of the top 10 most visited tourist attractions in the world were in Europe, the most visited being the Colosseum in Rome at 7.4 million visitors. Number 18. Liechtenstein, the fourth smallest country in Europe, does not have an airport. It is also a double landlocked country, meaning it's landlocked and the countries surrounding it are also landlocked. Number 19. Although Europe has just over 10% of the world's population, it is responsible for a quarter of the world's GDP, roughly $23.5 trillion US. If Europe was a single country, this would mean they'd have the highest GDP in the world, placing them only slightly ahead of the United States. Number 20. Again, if Europe was a single country, it would be the third most populated in the world, behind China and India. Remarkably, it would have roughly half of the population of both of these countries. Number 21. Now, this one really did take me by surprise. Kazakhstan is partially in Europe. It is a transcontinental country that sits nicely in Central Asia, but as it's so large, it stretches across to Eastern Europe, where around 10% of its population live. Number 22. There is a rainforest in Europe. Yes, Europe's climate allows for rainforests. One of the last remaining is Perućica in Bosnia. The 3,500-acre forest is a reserve of UNESCO's World Heritage List. Number 23. 10 villages in Scandinavia have the shortest city or town names in Europe, just one letter long. The city name, which means small brook or river in all Scandinavian languages, is found 9 times through the countries. Number 24. There are more bicycles than people in the Netherlands. Cycling is so popular in the Netherlands that 84% of all Dutch own at least one bicycle. With 22.3 million bicycles in the country for its 17 million residents, bike traffic and congestion is actually becoming a problem. Number 25. Monaco has the highest life expectancy not just in Europe, but the entire world. Maybe it's because of Monaco's beautiful sun-drenched location along the French Riviera. Maybe it's because of the popularity of the Mediterranean diet, found to be one of the healthiest in the world. In any case, the people of Monaco live on average to be 89.4 years, the highest not just in Europe, but the entire world. Number 26. Now, which company do you think has the highest value in Europe? It must be one of Germany's car companies like Volkswagen, right? Nope, it's LVMH, or Louis Vuitton as it's more commonly known. It is the most valuable company on the continent, at a market cap of around $350 billion US. LVMH controls around 60 subsidiaries that each manage a small number of prestigious brands. Number 27. Now, Europe isn't really known for its tall skyscrapers. It is more of a continent filled with ruins and castles. The city in Europe with the most skyscrapers belongs to Moscow at 65, placing them 29th highest in the world. Number 28. Heathrow Airport in London is the busiest airport on the continent. Pre-pandemic in 2019, nearly 81 million passengers passed through. However, Heathrow was dethroned in 2020 and 2021 by Istanbul Airport, which actually opened in 2019. Number 29. Iceland is the least densely populated country in Europe, at just 3 people per kilometers squared. However, the majority of the country live in its capital, Reykjavik, which has a population density of 480 people per kilometers squared. Number 30. According to Visual Capitalist's estimations, London is the city with the highest GDP in Europe at around $1 trillion, placing them 5th in the world and just above Paris. Number 31. Europe is home to the deadliest and longest war in recorded history. World War II at around 80 million deaths, and Reconquista at around 781 years. The Reconquista was a period in the history of the Iberian Peninsula of about 780 years of war between Spanish Christians and Muslims. Number 32. On the 11th of August 2021, Sicily in Italy recorded the highest ever temperature in Europe at 48.8 degrees Celsius or 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Number 33. And on the other end of the spectrum, the lowest temperature ever recorded in Europe was minus 58.1 degrees Celsius, or minus 72.6 degrees Fahrenheit, in Russia. Number 34. According to the Economist Intelligent Unit ranking, Zurich is the most livable city in Europe and the 7th most livable in the world. Number 35. At around 75% in 2021, Norway is the country with the highest share of plug-in electric car sales in Europe. For reference, Iceland comes in second at 45%. Number 36. Just one of the world's 7 wonders of the world is found in Europe, the Colosseum, located in Rome, Italy. Likewise, just one of the world's 7 natural wonders is also located in Europe. And technically, it isn't even Europe, it's in space. It is the Northern Lights, or the Aurora Borealis. Number 37. The richest country on the continent when measuring GDP or economy size goes to Germany at around $4.2 trillion, placing them 4th in the world. Number 38. When it comes to GDP per capita, however, Liechtenstein is the richest in Europe and in fact the world. In 2020, the United Nations estimated this value to be around $180,000. Number 39. The country with the most Nobel Prizes in Europe belongs to the UK at 138. It must be noted, however, that Frederick Sanger received this prestigious award twice for his work in chemistry. Number 40. The top 3 countries in the world with the most islands are all in Europe, and they are all in fact Nordic countries and neighbours. This is Sweden, Norway and Finland. They have 268,000, 239,000 and 179,000 islands each, respectively. Number 41. At 136, Germany has the most billionaires in Europe. Per 2 million people, there are roughly 3 billionaires. To put this in perspective, the US is the country with the most billionaires at 724 and 3.9 billionaires per 2 million people. Number 42. Germany not only excels in wealth, it plays pretty good football too, or soccer depending on where you're from. With a total of 4 World Cup wins, the Germans have the equal most World Cup trophies in Europe, tying with Italy. However, Germany have 4 runners-up medals compared to Italy's 2. Number 43. Excluding Russia, Germany is the highest CO2 emitting country in Europe. Its CO2 emissions are estimated to be around 800 million tonnes, making them the 6th highest emitter in the world. For reference, the UK is the 17th highest emitter at around 370 million tonnes, so more than half. Number 44. At 3,790 kilometers, the Volga River is the longest river and the 16th longest in the world. Situated in Russia, it flows through central Russia to southern Russia and into the Caspian Sea. Number 45. Camp Nou, Barcelona FC's football or soccer stadium, is the highest capacity stadium in Europe at just under 100,000. Although this stadium is unbelievably huge and impressive, it still does not feature in the top 10 in the world. Number 46. Germans sure do love a museum. At 6,741, Germany has by far the most museums in Europe. the second most in the world, only to the US, who have a mind-boggling 33,000. Number 47. At around 34%, Apple just beats Samsung at being the smartphone vendor with the highest market share across the European continent. The UK is the country with the highest market share of Apple users at 53%. Number 48. The euro is the official currency of 19 of the 27 member states of the European Union. It is classed as the second most important currency in the world, only behind the US dollar. Number 49. Spread across 52 acres and located in Poland, Malbork Castle is the largest castle in Europe and, of course, the world. It is also considered the largest brick structure ever built with human hands. And finally, number 50. Bulgaria is the oldest country in Europe and the only country that has not changed its name since it was first established. Kosovo, on the other hand, is the youngest country in Europe. While Serbia and a handful of other countries such as Russia and China do not recognize Kosovo's independence, the International Court of Justice ruled that Kosovo is a sovereign nation in 2010.